It's awesome representing North America. I mean, anything to represent the old red, white, and blue, and then just supporting North American region and everything else is something awesome. Anytime you go to a competition on an international level, it's a really humbling experience to know that you're representing like a large group of individuals.
We've represented North America for a very long time, and if it's going to be any team, it has to be us.
We're a team that even when we aren't at our 100% in terms of tournament results, we can kind of come out of nowhere when it's a really important tournament and just take the whole thing. We've shown that in the past, and that's what we plan on doing here. Like leading into BlizzCon, usually our practice is about 5 to 6 hours a day, and that's just against multiple teams. We usually take time to look at replays as well, so we're going over the games, looking at our mistakes that we made, what we're going to improve, and then coming in the next day with a game plan of what we want to work on.
BlizzCon has always been a dream for our team and a goal and that we've been working for a long time, and it is fulfilling to finally be here. But honestly, if you're going to show up, to be here, that's not the end of the goal. The goal is to finish it and win it. If I was to win BlizzCon, what do I say to my opponents? I mean, GG, no re. What else do you have to say?
네, 저희 팀원들 5명 다 블리즈컨에 처음 하게 됐는데
저희 5명이 뭉친 지는 한 8개월 정도 됐고 저희가 각자 포지션마다 저희 팀 다 잘한다고 생각해서 모았기 때문에 저희 팀은 어느 팀보다 제일 잘하는 것 같아요.
일단 저희가 한국, 중국 다 이렇게 해봤잖아요.
일단 한국이라고 다들 들으면 게임을 가장 잘하는 나라라고 생각하잖아요. 다른 팀들이랑 솔직히 저희가 친해요. 근데 그 팀들을 대표해서 저희가 한국 대표로 온 거니까 마냥 기쁘지만은 않고 부담되는 것도 있긴 한데 그래도 꼭 한국 팀으로 왔으니까 꼭 이번에 우승하고 싶어요.
기존에 중국이랑 대만 사람들이랑 해보다가 북미 유럽이랑 하게 돼서 템포스톰은 이미 강호 팀이기도 하고 하지만 근데 저희 팀이 준비만 된다면 질 것 같진 않아요.
일단 실력적으로는 걱정되는 건 하나도 없고요. 만약에 새로운 챔피언을 쓴다든지
일단 우승하는 게 가장 중요하기 때문에 우승을 하고 좀 그런 걸 생각해야 될 것 같고 우승을 한다면은 어디든 기쁘게 놀러 다닐 수 있을 것 같아요.
작년에는 저희가 없어서 C9이 우승했지만 더 쉽게 우승했지만 안 될 것 같고요.
Alrighty guys, welcome back here to the Heroes of the Storm World Championship. My name is Solid Jake and I'm joined here at the desk with my good friend Kubi and of course the one and only Grubby himself.
That's right, really excited to be here for the BlizzCon World Championship. We've seen some amazing series thus far, but I think this one is the one that a lot of us are really excited to see because there's so much on the line. So much is really just kind of, we're not really sure what's going to happen with, Tempo Storm moving forward at this point. How are they showing up? They've had some shaky results in the past. Team DK known to be the favorites moving forward. So I'm really excited to see how this pans out.
Yeah, we have potentially the most dominant team here. As the Korean team are saying, some of the best pro gaming teams and players are coming from Korea in Team DK. But we've got the best statistical score here for Tempo Storm with a 50 wins, 4 loss record. So Tempo Storm, they know what it feels like to win.
Yeah, but one of their biggest losses of all time has been against MVP Black, who Team DK has already beat. So if that's like something that's going to shake your team coming into this matchup, it's like, all right, well, we've only played Korea once and we got decimated. Yeah. So this is redemption for them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we actually, we need to see that rivalry between those two regions once more. And again, a lot is going to be driving the rest of the tournament. Because like I was saying, these guys are the favorites. Tempo Storm, they have known that victory in the past, that dominant performance like you were mentioning, Grubby. Can they take that back once more?
Well, we'll find out very soon. But to introduce us to our teams, we have Anna. Anna, take it away.
Thank you so much, guys. And of course, I would like to add my welcome. Welcome back to the Heroes of the Storm World Championship BlizzCon opening weekend. And it's my pleasure to remind you the teams that we have here on hand. Of course, these are the 8 best teams in the world vying for that first World Championship title. From North America, we have Tempo Storm and Cloud9. From Europe, Na'Vi and Team Dignitas. From China, YL and Braveheart. From Korea, Team DK. And from Taiwan, GIA. And of course, they are all here vying for their share of $500,000. Third place is going to walk away with $50,000. Second place taking $120,000. And first place will be awarded $200,000. That, of course, is a total of $500,000 in prizing. Now, those teams are ready to fight. They have been anxiously awaiting backstage. And Jake, tell us a little bit about them and what we're going to see next.
Well, you know what? We actually know quite a bit about these teams. It's definitely not their first tournament. And honestly, they've been through quite a bit getting here. Let's actually take a look at the competition overview if you guys are just tuning into the tournament, because this process all started way back as early as June this year. So, all right, the open tournaments all began in June and they fed into the regional events. The regional events, of course, were the championships for every single region across the globe, which then fed into the World Championship, which is where we are today. Taking a look at the World Championship breakdown, Korea has one team, that's Team DK. From Europe, we have Na'Vi and Dignitas. 2 teams from America, that's Tempo Storm and Cloud9. China, we've got Team YL and, of course, Braveheart. And last but not least, we have GIA representing Taiwan, and those are our 8 teams here today.
That's right. We can also take a quick look at the brackets and how they have progressed thus far. We have split all of these 8 teams into 2 different groups. So we're going to be looking at Group A first. That's where we've spent some of our time thus far. Cloud9 taking a victory over GIA. Dignitas, as you guys just saw, over YL. But as we move into Group B, which is where we're going to be checking out our matches next, we're going to be starting off with Tempo Storm up against DK. And following that, we will have Braveheart up against Na'Vi.
So we've already got our 5th game of the day sorted out. Are you excited about this game, Grubby?
I am very much. I'm going to be casting that game as well, the 5th game, Dignitas versus
Cloud9.
Versus Cloud9. I thought it would be the 2 of them already, but it's really cool to also see that actually happening. These 2 teams are going to provide a really, really close game. I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think the teams are ready to be introduced. Anna, take it away.
Thanks, Jake. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our blue team. They were dethroned after being the dominant force in all of the qualifiers up to the Americas Championship, so they are here to prove they deserve to be on top. It is Tempo Storm. And our red team has said that no one here really is competition because all of the competition they thought was challenging was in Korea. Coming, of course, from Korea, it is Team DK. There are many people talking about this match. It's been cited as one of our favorites in terms of the commentary team. Let's see how these 2 teams think they will fare against each other. Check this out.
DK is definitely a rough team to face first. They're the team from Korea, and Korea is a very, very strong region. They took out MVP Black 4-2 to get here, and MVP Black is a very, very strong team. They're definitely going to be a tough opponent, but we'll just give it our all and give it our best shot.
So since PAX, we've shifted a lot of our focus from just trying to be the best in North America to trying to be better than the other regions as well.
한국이 가장 세다고 생각을 하고 그래서 저희 한국팀
DK is definitely a rough team to face first. They're the team from Korea, and Korea is a very, very strong region. They took out MVP Black 4-2 to get here, and MVP Black is a very, very strong team. They're definitely going to be a tough opponent, but we'll just give it our all and give it our best shot.
So since PAX, we've shifted a lot of our focus from just trying to be the best in North America to trying to be better than the other regions as well.
한국이 가장 세다고 생각을 하고 그래서 저희 한국팀 다 이기고 올라와서 저희가 우승할 것 같으니까 즐기다 가시면 될 것 같아요.
I personally did quite a bit of research into Korea and China specifically. They do have moments where they pick unique things in their draft, and it's usually map dependent, but most of the time they remain with a consistent meta and strategy. So I'm confident going into both areas.
That video was so good, we watched it twice. That's right, absolutely. So really cool to see what both of those teams have to say about each other. And we actually got a chance to sit down with DK before all the matches were going on today during a little bit of an interview, so asked us some questions, and they were surprisingly very confident, like that video was showing us. And you know, they do have that StarCraft background, a lot of the players on the team. And I thought it was just very interesting that just complete confidence, even between the team. They were joking, laughing, we were asking these questions. What do you think about NA, Europe, and just laughter immediately?
Yeah, one of the cool things about that is 4 of the players on Team DK were former StarCraft 2 professional players. So they were both rivals, as well as probably having a lot of respect for each other in terms of facing each other in competition. But one of the players was actually the team captain. They found him randomly in a Hero League game. They were like, okay, you know, we're matched up with this stranger, and oh, he's really solid, he's really legit. And they started talking to him, they acquired him for the team, and now he's the team captain. They say he's a really nice guy.
It's just crazy to think that the team captain's the only one that doesn't have pro gaming experience. Right. But you know what? Let's actually take a closer look at these teams. Tempo Storm, they've been around for a long time. If you've followed the action of the Road to BlizzCon, you know them very well. 50-4 for their record. At one point in time, a lot of players would have said that, you know, arguably the best team in the world, but here, in a lot of ways, they're considered the underdog, Kubi. Yes, so Tempo Storm looking really to take that. And we heard about them in that video, what they thought about it, and just, you know, a little bit of a somber attitude perhaps from Arthlon. You know, we'll give it our best, but we need a little bit more than that, considering they are the favorite region moving forward. We also want to take a little bit of a closer look at DK as well. And of course, DK, I mean, representing Korea, the one team from Korea, like Grubby mentioned, 4 of these players are former professional StarCraft 2 players. Have you played against them yourself?
Oh yeah, Crazy Moving was a great Zerg player, Noblesse, a Terran, SCSC was a Terran player as well. I was in a team house with him for a while, having a training stint in Korea. And you've got Sniper, who's actually also a GSL winner Zerg player. I think he may have won the IPL or got top 4 in Las Vegas, IPL 5. Great players, all of them. And then Jaehyun, actually, they're the team captain, funnily enough, without having that StarCraft 2 experience.
Now, if you guys actually don't follow a lot of esports, Korea is largely considered to be the esports mecca. I mean, they are kings in a lot of ways. So going against a team of seasoned veterans like that, that is a daunting task, but I think Tempo Storm has what it takes.
It's kind of the breeding ground of esports as well, because about 15 years ago, if you're wondering like, oh, you know, what is esports? Well, competitive gaming is what it is. Esports is actually a term coined by the Koreans, and in about the year 2000, we started seeing official competitions in Blizzard games. Like it actually all started with Brood War in terms of PC competitive gaming. Now that has evolved to other games like Warcraft 3, StarCraft 2, and now one of Blizzard's newest games, Heroes of the Storm. They have come together to seek more competitive gaming glory.
Yeah, and Grubby, I think that's interesting. You were mentioning some of the, you know, the really high-end competitive background for those players. it should be noted that these guys are champions in their previous careers in Blizzard games. They have won tournaments. So if there's any question about stage nerves for these players, I think we can fairly assume that is non-existent.
Let's just dismiss that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not a thing. But Tempo Storm, they've also got a bit of LAN experience under their belt. I mean, they played at MSI MGA at PAX Prime, and of course they performed quite well at Las Vegas, the Americas Championships, because they've made it this far.
Yeah, Tempo Storm did lose to MVP Black in the previous biggest international global competition for Heroes of the Storm. This is the second one, but they made it pretty far anyway in that tournament, didn't they?
Yeah, well, we'll see how they can do here. The draft is ready to roll for game number 1 in this best-of-3 series between Tempo Storm and Team DK. I almost said MVP Black there, Grubby. You just mentioned them. I'm thinking about that matchup, and
putting
it's just
words in your head.
All right, so we're going to be starting off. The battleground of choice is Dragonshire, and to no surprise, we see the Sonya taken away in that first ban, which, first pick, first ban, going to Tempo Storm. I would expect an Uther to be taken out next, but we have seen more surprises today.
Yeah, one of the things, actually, that is really interesting about competitive gaming, it's not all about what's best and what's most popular. You've got global differences in different continents and countries. Just like in chess and in football or soccer, there are so many stylistic differences from country to country. It's the same in competitive gaming, where you actually saw Sonya being popularized in Korea, firstly, a few months ago. And so even though the other regions already adopted that and picked that up, they're still saying, okay, not only is this a very strong hero globally, but you're also the one that probably knows her best.
Yeah, and she's only gotten better in the last patch. Now, I'm intrigued by the Tassadar ban. Of course, Tassadar definitely rising in power, but the Uther pick, that is very much the standard.
Uther enables you to draft a wide variety of different drafts. It probably expands your draft in the greatest possible way because you can safely take melee assassins.
Yes, Divine Shield is an amazing ability. We've seen it do a lot of work earlier, but Kerrigan and just what you can open up with that, something that we can expect to see even, ETC jumping into the meta more. And if you can land that mosh pit and maybe have one other person outside that is relying on that stun, Divine Shield, it just opens up so many more opportunities, like you were saying, Grubby.
Now, the next 2 picks will go to Team DK. This is actually a really big surprise for me. What will happen? Jaina itself, not too much of a surprise.
Zeratul still on the table with Tassadar banned out. That is a nice bonus for him because Oracle, a great way to get eyes on that Dark Templar of Zeratul. But there's still a pretty high preference for warriors early in the draft, even with so many good warrior options in the current meta.
Yeah, I'd fully expect to see that. And we can take a look at Jaina. You've been seeing her all day in so many of these games. What is it that makes her so strong? Of course, it is the ability to slow heroes and really dish out a lot of that burst damage at such an early level. She doesn't rely so much on some of those talents to really be able to dish that out. And some of those heroics also have a huge impact. Ring of Frost, as you guys might be able to see. Well, maybe in this game, who knows? But yeah, it's really, she has so much versatility, right? Even if it's Water Elemental, Ring of Frost, she has a lot to control, especially with that slow ability. Now, what I really want to point out is we're looking at this battlefield, Dragonshire. It's very rotational heavy.
Sure.
DK is known to be strong in that, especially in the early game. Tempo Storm, they have that strength in the late game, but picking up Jaina makes a lot of sense for DK for that reason.
Yeah, you can secure so many kills with it. One little bit out of position, and Jaina will just slow you, and you will not make it back to the gate on time.
And to follow that up as well, no surprise to see Muradin, possibly the best rotation, early game hero to pair with Jaina.
And he dissuades a lot of the melee assassin play. If you're worried about Illidan, Reverberation is a great response to that. Uther immediately makes those kind of heroes more of a threat than it might have been prior to this, because you still have to worry about so many other options. I mean, Tempo Storm could try to look for Abathur. It might not be the largest battleground, but he's still a powerful hero. You can clone multiple targets. What do you think we'll see here? You think just going to go for the standard range assassins? Well, there's Kael'thas.
Yeah, there's been such a heavy emphasis on prioritizing heroes with stuns recently. If it's not Jaina, like Muradin, Uther, Kael'thas. So very cool to see Kael'thas here. It makes sense. Tyrande, not out of this world, quite possible. Uther a little bit lacking in the long-term healing. She would add that, and another stun for rotational play. That is definitely a possibility. Whoa.
Okay, so yeah, I was talking to Tempo Storm a little bit earlier today, and asking them what they're feeling comfortable with, especially after some of the scrimming that had been happening yesterday between a lot of the teams, and they said if we can get that triple range, we're going to be feeling comfortable.
Really?
I mean, that's a classic tempo.
It is.
It
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So they're just saying, let's go back to what used to work for us before we try to adapt to the
You
world.
know, when they stopped running triple ranged, they were having poor results with Zagara. That was a big part of that. But they've been putting KO and Sylvanas quite a bit. And the results have been phenomenal because as great as Ma is, they nerfed Void Prison, so it's not as good of a response. And Wailing Arrow kind of fills that same kind of gap, too. I mean, it really fulfills a very similar kind of control in the battle.
I feel like it's such an early pick for Sylvanas. Like, I don't think DK would take it. I mean, it does happen sometimes to disable the effective Divine Shield. If you can hit Uther and another hero, you can take down the other hero more easily. But I find it quite an early Sylvanas pick, and it points to what you guys are saying, comfort, probably.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
They love playing it.
Okay, so moving into the next set of bans before we get to that next pick, we do have the Kerrigan taken out from Team DK. That I do find interesting because really it doesn't, for me, look like they're setting up anything that looks to be very aggressive early game play. So that is very interesting. But what I also do like from Tempo Storm, taking out that Tyrande, it does fit very well with that Jaina Muradin style.
Oh yeah, Miranda, we've seen that so strong in the past.
So Zagara's job here is to control the top lane, to win the 1v1 in the top lane. Which means that they're confident that they can also win the 4v4 rotation, which means Zagara is always left alone and is able to really dominate the top lane. Tempo Storm needs to choose a good top laner as well. So Leoric makes a lot of sense here.
Yes, that's good. So they can make sure that they have Sylvanas. Now, if Tempo Storm is able to take those rotations in the early game, they are going to have a very, very strong push with that Sylvanas.
So which hero do you want for that?
For them to continue rotating. Okay, so they're going to grab Ball. They are going to fill out that triple ranged composition.
It's as you guys said. Going back to what used to work, which got phased out of the meta.
It's just interesting to do this with Leoric as your lone warrior because generally you want to have somebody with a bit more control like Johanna or Muradin. Hey, guess what? They're both taken.
But might I offer that they might have done that or another warrior if it was a different map, but they just need to win that top lane.
Yeah.
Like let's say they went Tyrael, which would maybe fit more, let's say, but then she wouldn't be able to beat Zagara in top lane. I mean, Tyrael wouldn't be able to. Maybe that's why.
So this feels to me, DK looking to have that incredibly strong early game tempo. We're going to stall this out as long as we possibly can in a safe manner. And, you know, really about those rotations, you know, between mid and the bottom lane, I don't think that there's really a lot of threat that Tempo Storm can put on the board, so they need to play as safe as they can, much akin to what we saw with that Azmodan game from Dignitas.
But they're playing to their strengths. They're a team that's known for their late game, so draft for the late game. I mean, I think it's really intelligent, and I'm glad they're busting this out. But guys, we want to make sure that you guys display your thoughts over on Twitter. Join us on Twitter at Esports Heroes. Use the hashtag HeroesWC and let us know who you think will win this matchup. Tempo Storm from America or DK from Korea. But without any more delay, let's hop into game number 1 on Dragonshire between Tempo Storm and Team DK.
All right, so again, we're going to be looking for a very explosive early game from DK, so keep your eyes out for that. But let's get to introducing these teams. One of NA's favorites. They have had such dominating performances in the Opens, and we are going to have Tempo Storm. Arthon is going to be on the Kael'thas. Dreadnought will be playing Uther. KO on the Sylvanas. Soldier is going to be playing Leoric, and Zuna rounds out the competition here with Valla.
On the other side, it is Team DK of Korea, with Crazy Moving playing as Jaina. It's going to be Jaehyun on Malfurion, Noblesse playing Johanna, SCSC on Muradin, and Sniper will round out the team as Zagara.
Okay, again, just keep in mind that incredibly strong early game potential. I would fully expect to see Tempo Storm playing very passively. Even them rotating up to that middle section and getting aggressive, I find to be a bit too much. Any kind of lockdown from the enemy team, whether it be Muradin stuns and then following up with Jaina, could be disastrous.
All right, well, we're going to see there's a lot of party pushing happening. Both teams sticking together before those first waves do reach the top and bottom. And a lot of damage thrown onto Soldier, but he's able to skip on out of there with his life intact.
Right, but imagine if that had been hit onto any other hero. That's what I'm saying. They have to be so careful with these rotations early game if they want to get to the late game without that massive disadvantage.
Control them and
okay,
let
Malfurion
loose
did
the
go for
Dragon
Moonburn,
Knight.
so they do want to make sure they have a lot of lane clear. We see the Knight takes pawn for Johanna, Moonburn for Malfurion. I mean, really, just emphasis on clearing the lanes as fast as they can so that they can rotate and look for those early takedowns.
Yeah, and much akin to that as well. I'd love to see a full Condemn build out of Johanna, especially because of those quick rotations. Getting that cooldown reduction with the Eternal Retaliation, excuse me, at level 4 could really feed a lot into that early game presence and pushing super hard against the Sylvanas
power is yours.
Okay, the shrines are in fact active, but the chance of us seeing an early Dragonite is pretty slim. Both teams will generally try to just put extra presence into one of the 2 lanes, top or bottom, and just make sure they control that to deny the enemy team from picking up a Dragon Knight.
Yeah, having control of that top lane, like you mentioned, with the Sylvanas up there, she should be able to contest the Zagara well enough, at the very least put out much more damage depending on how you're dealing with those Hydralisks early game.
You know, it's really interesting to me that recently we've been seeing the multi-shot build resurface, even for North American teams. There was a very long time where we were strictly seeing Hungering Arrow builds out of Valas, and yeah, it's good to see the return.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of that has to do with there's no melee assassin threat per se. There's no Illidan that's going to be really trying to corner the Vala. There's no Zeratul. And I think that build fits so nicely into those situations where you need to get the health back and try to scare that melee assassin off. And when you can get the utility, oh yes, hold on a second. A little bit of a dive forward, hold on.
The party push, but we see SCSE getting very low. Multi-shot going out from Vala. One more hit will seal the deal, but the heals aren't going to be there in time. Oh my goodness, Malfurion just barely keeping Muradin alive from that Envenom.
Yeah, not to mention that the trait kicking in immediately after. And this is actually both shrines temporarily going to be controlled by DK. So we're going to need to see some rotation to the mid at the very least for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, just Dreadnought there. He cannot defend this on his own versus Malfurion and Jaina. We see Darthlon rotating up on Kael'thas, and they do regain control of the bottom temple. Crisis controlled.
Crisis control. All right, so we do actually have that Eternal Retaliation build, so going to see even more rotations between, for Noblesse is going to be able to get that cooldown off. That's 7.5 seconds reduction off a 10-second cooldown for Condemn. That means so much more control of the fight, as if there wasn't already enough with Muradin and Jaina.
It's definitely a scary early game composition here for Team DK, but so far so good for Tempo Storm. They've been playing rather passively, denying the Dragonite. They haven't taken any losses on their side in terms of takedowns, and really just playing exactly how they need to for that late game style.
Okay, good follow-up, making sure that the Leoric was not too far behind Dreadnought there to make sure that he was safe. I think really the breaking point here, since we don't have any takedowns in this early game, so to that extent, hold on a moment. Zuna taking a lot of damage.
The roots are there, and Zuna's just going to use a fault to try to get out of there. Moonburn, not enough for the kill. Zuna just barely getting out of there with his life.
All of 5 HP maybe, getting out of that situation. Maybe lucky, maybe calculated.
But this will probably be a Dragonite. No one is in position to stall this out. We see Noblesse channeling it, and the first dragon picked up very early at the 4-minute marker for Team DK.
Okay, so the entire goal of this dragon is not really Team DK.
No. Team Dragonite.
No, you didn't. This was meant to be for them to take the first dragon.
Dreadnought, no, he does end up going down 2 kills in favor of Team DK right now. They're sitting in the great spot. Still 1 kill. Zuna did get away earlier.
That's right.
Noblesse, yeah, he took out the towers. Generally, the first dragon won't do a whole lot of structural damage.
You're just looking to secure that experience advantage, and we can actually see that in full effect right here. All the ammunition drained. Zagara has already done her due diligence. Taking out the ammunition is going to make the job for the Dragonite that much easier. Probably getting even more value than you would expect to see early game from these Dragonites.
I mean, and even Johanna's going to stick around, try to burn down this last tower. That's 400 experience for your team, and you can see already a full level advantage from just a moment ago was a dead even game.
Very interesting to see the Asane Renewal, which is like his mini first aid version. Yeah, another lockdown. We've got to be keeping an eye on this. There's so much early game pressure from DK. They're not going to get anything out of it just yet, but they really have put their presence on the board. Vala even getting taken down.
And this is a full heal build for Malfurion, pretty much. I mean, Moonburn level 1, there's not really any healing options, but just improving your regrowth. So it does massive heals. You saw how fast Moving's health bar went back up.
Oh, yeah. You have to remember what the goal of the composition is from a DK. They need to get that burst damage in. If there's anything that you can do on Malfurion's side to make sure he doesn't have protective shield anymore, so you take the next best thing, and that is the initial burst damage on that regrowth.
Okay, level 10 has been reached for Team DK. We see Tranquility, Maw, Avatar, Blessed Shield, and Water Elemental. This is a huge window, a level and a half lead, where they can truly bully Tempo Storm.
Yeah, they've already taken the offensive Giants in the bottom lane. They're taking their own Giants to be able to push out further. Will they continue to take more mercenary camp pressure? I think that they're afforded the opportunity to do so because of this window of opportunity that you have. A level and a half up right now. If they want to march forward and take either of the the night camps, I think that's probably a smart way to continue to push your advantage forward.
Yeah, Tempo is working on their bruisers, but if DK did march in here, they would probably just back away. It looks like they're going to be A-okay in picking those up, but Team DK, they're getting in position in that bottom lane. Murden and Jaina and Malfurion all waiting for Kael'thas to potentially poke his head out, but he's playing very safely. Arthlon knows the risk that does exist down here.
Okay, so everything about Tempo Storm's composition, especially as we reach that level 10, it's got to be all about this AoE damage focus. There's probably going to be Phoenix. That Wailing Arrow. Yes, another stun being thrown down. Have to be careful. He's getting isolated. Dodges that.
There it goes. Blood Shield goes down. The Blizzard raining down, and Arthlon gets blown up, but the Strafe is doing massive damage. But all the while, we see the massive Tranquility on the side of Jehu, just keeping that team topped off. And now Dreadnought is a bit of a risky spot, but a huge Wailing Arrow goes out, silencing the two members. Dwarf Toss not quite enough for him to get out of there, and the Roots are buying so much time. Dreadnought gets pulled back on in. He is in a terrible spot. He does go down.
Wow, I really thought Tempo Storm was going to be able to turn that around, especially with the potential for exactly that. The Entomb not going to end up panning out. It really looked like they had enough AoE damage, and that was really the point I was trying to make before that fight even started, was that they're really trying to overwhelm the entire team. But the problem is that they're up against a Malfurion who just works so well against that style of composition.
He's just got crazy heals, still sitting on that full level lead, but Tempo Storm, I mean, all things considered, they did handle that decently well. They rotated quickly, even though Arthlon fell, they got a few kills himself, and their back keep took no damage at all.
Okay, so Jake, the question I pose for you, what amount of experience lead does DK need to hold going into this mid to late game to really have a safe advantage over Tempo Storm, who's known for having that strong late game?
I honestly think they need at least 2 levels, and if Tempo Storm's on even footing at level 16, this is going to be so hard for DK. Just like you said, that's what they're known for. They're a late game team. Their decision making is phenomenal. It only takes one team fight for Tempo Storm to just end the game.
How many times have we seen that out of these guys where they have been losing the entire time? They take one convincing fight, they march past the keep wall, and hold on, a really nice Entomb.
It's going down. The Phoenix in a gray spot, and Sniper is falling rapidly, but he does end up falling. Dreadnought falls in turn, but his Ghost Form is still there to keep the heals up. Zuna looking to apply some damage. He will end up getting low. The vault, the heals. Zuna's walking away. The Dwarf Toss, the Stormbolt isn't available. Zuna's so low, and he does go down. Arthlon also in a sticky situation, taps the well. Oh my goodness, so low. He falls as well. 4 for 2 in favor of Team DK.
The question for the viewers is, do you believe in ghosts? Not today, but almost. It was a lot of healing, and that's really why, you know, even in some of the games previous, we saw teams really just holding back. Don't take out the Uther right away, and that was almost the tipping point during that fight, is if you take out the Uther too early, that flash of light heals way too much, and, you know, it can really do a lot to turn fights around. Not going to be the case here. A 2-level lead and another Dragon Knight for DK.
Yeah, I mean, the talent advantage, the experience advantage in that game, we saw the emphasis, the effect it had on that entire fight, and also the body blocking of Team DK was absolutely phenomenal, just forcing Zuna into weird spots, even when he was able to vault away. It wasn't enough.
Ooh, Icy Veins picked up at 13 for Jaina, going to be a lot more damage output, but the other really big tipping point is going to be that Chain Bomb at 13 for Kael'thas, so keep your eyes out for that.
These Entombs keep going off on Zagara and not really doing a whole lot. I mean, that is a heroic spent that really did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and another 3 seconds before that Maw is back up, which can do a lot to get her out of those sticky situations.
Okay, well, the Dragon does expire, only removing this middle fort, so it's not critical damage, but we talked about having a 2-level lead being the key going into level 16, and that is exactly what Team DK has right now.
Absolutely. So, all right, I want to go back to this Icy Veins build. And the reasons that you would take Ice Block over Icy Veins is where you're scared of really getting bursted down. That's not at all the name of the game for Tempo Storm's comp. I think it's a very smart pick. Why not capitalize on the advantages you do have? And that is putting out a lot of damage for Jaina. A smart call.
Yeah, and it just makes her so scary in a lot of these situations. Full heal build from Malfurion has been paying off as well. And right now, it's really just Team DK gathering even more control on the battleground. They picked up a pair of Giants here in the bottom lane. They're putting pressure onto that bottom lane as well, pushing back those Giants and picking up these bottom lane bruisers.
DK is so smart with their talent picks. I love this, taking neither of the ice blocks too. You mentioned the life steal. That is continual healing. Really just, again, exacerbating the advantage that Malfurion has, and that is in AoE healing, and just makes himself even stronger. All of these heroes are being played to their maximum strength.
It's scary, Kubi. This is a really tough situation for Tempo Storm to be in. Down those level 16 talents with this much of an experience deficit will be tough, but we do see a nice Entomb going off, and the blow-up is there on Jaina this time. I bet she wished she had Ice Block.
Yeah, there's a good case for it. Really, with the Entomb is going to be the situations where they need to capitalize. I think Tempo Storm has done a good job, but they still have more work to do, again, still with that 2-level deficit.
Okay, another Bruiser Camp being picked up here. Tempo Storm just pushing out their lanes, making sure the minions are at least at the midway point. If they're pushing back, I mean, it's more vision for your team, and that's why lane control is so crucial in Heroes of the Storm.
Okay, another set of Dragon Knights going to pop up. That means those shrines will be contested once more. The positioning is still quite good for DK, especially with Sniper awaiting. Is he overextended though with the full rotation from Tempo Storm? He knows what's going on.
The creep spread, I mean, the value right there. He got eyes on, and he immediately turned around. If he had stuck around, definitely could have been a really risky situation for himself. But Tempo Storm pushing that in. They will be flanked. Johanna in the back. Muradin a little bit far behind. A beautiful Maw has been thrown out, and Tempo needs to back away, but the damage is far too severe. This is just a decimation, Kubi.
That's what I was saying, though. The Maw, if you try to corner that Zagara, you know, just like an animal, just put to the back to the wall, she is going to throw that Maw. If you put too many eggs into that basket, then all of those heroes are going to get taken out. Yeah, it's too much. That AoE is the name of the game. Or, I mean, at least that burst damage for Jaina. If you give her the situation where she's got a 3 or 4 person Maw, you're going to be left with this disaster that we're looking at right here for Tempo Storm. 5 people down. You're down a talent tier for the time being, but more importantly, another Dragon Knight, and this could easily turn into a keep.
I'm convinced their team means Team Dragon Knight, because this is 3 in a row, and it is going to march straight down the middle lane. Top 4 will go down. This middle keep is in a very bad spot.
I don't think this is going to be in game yet, especially with that level 16 rolling around, so they do still have the capability to bounce back here, but they really need to change something about their gameplay.
Okay, Kael'thas can start to get a bit more aggressive. Arcane Barrier gives him a lot of additional sustainability, and they once again get a nice Entomb on Jaina, but where is the damage? There it is, they blow him up, but KO might be traded out. Dwarf Toss does pick up the takedown. The middle keep is down. Dragon Knight expires, but Tempo Storm lost 2 and only took out 1.
The question is, what do they change in terms of how they need to approach these team fights? Something is going to have to get adjusted going into this late game. The Entombs have really not been working out considering the Maws. The Silencers are always there, and they almost always take out that single hero, and it's just not quite enough. Level just difference, sure, that is going to play a big factor, but I think they need to find some other type of approach. I almost wonder if just having more damage output from like a March and try to position with more flanks, but you know, it's obviously too late for that, so they're going to have to find a way to make the Entomb work.
I mean, Tempo, I was critical in the draft when I saw the Lonely Yorick, and this is not something that Tempo's had the most success with. Generally, if they have Muradin or Johanna, they're going to be content, but props to Team DK realizing this and drafting both of those warriors.
Yep, for sure. They're going to continue rotating around, not trying to overextend, but level 20 just hit. This is a big, big advantage, and 3 levels before Tempo Storm is going to be able to find themselves on even footing in that sense.
I mean, this is a disgustingly large lead here for Team DK. I mean, they are showing the power of Korea right now.
Yeah, and back to the point on the Entomb as well, what is the counter to that? It's mobility. 3 of the heroes have picked up Bolt of the Storm.
Yeah, this makes things a lot harder to make those plays. You're going to throw down Entomb on Jaina or Zagara. They can both just bolt away. Sure, you're burning a cooldown, but you're spending a heroic to do so.
Yep, Muradin can leap out. Johanna's got the Indestructible. It's going to be so difficult. It basically needs to be that silence has to be timed flawlessly. So there's a lot of pressure to execute in that sense as a team.
Okay, Soldier just backing on up. He's going to tap the well and re-enter the battle. They need to defend this bottom lane keep. Losing it here would be absolutely devastating for Tempo Storm. And the Entomb does go out, trying to zone out this team into a weird situation. Bolt goes out for Jaina. Noblesse gets very low, but Indestructible has popped. And the healing of Malfurion is just far too much.
Yeah, he's got the Tranquility out, the Life Seed on top of that. Amaw gets thrown down. Not sure if they're going to have enough damage. SCSC thinks otherwise.
Bolting, jumping on in there. SCSC getting quite low himself, a hardened shield just keeping him alive, and look at all of the healing coming through. They're going to walk away after doing some massive damage to this keep. No one's going to end up falling in this battle, though.
Yeah, still a solid defense for Tempo Storm regardless. Didn't lose any of those heroes. They just need to be patient until they can get to that level 20.
Okay, they're looking for this Tempo Storm. I can actually hear them shouting that shield is unpassive. That is a level 20 talent for Noblesse. So they were looking to see if they can get some lockdown, but no, Iron Skin is just a bit too much. The energy in this venue is high right now.
Yes, yes, it is. So I think another big thing that we were talking, or at least we can notice with that, is they were trying to take advantage of some kind of a rotation, catch someone out of position. One thing I'm noticing out of DK's plays, nobody's ever out of position. How do you try to catch these heroes? And they always have some kind of failsafe, whether it be the Maw, now these bolts on just on the ready. It's so rough for Tempo Storm to try to bounce back from this.
Especially when they get free Dragon Knights left and right.
Yeah.
Team Dragon Knight too strong, man.
Okay, and they're going to have their sights set on this bottom keep. Even just consistently throwing out that fire breath, I'm not sure they're going to be able to defend against it.
This keep is going down so fast, cutting through it like a stick of butter. I used the right analogy, Kubi.
I'm so proud of you right now. Not falling like a tower of butter this time. Look at this. They know the advantage they have. They just take this keep, back off, don't need to overextend, and they can just keep poking. And if they find an example of a mistake like this, a great Divine Shield.
Big D shield. Leoric will be able to get out of there, but the punt is there, and Arthalon won't be so lucky. Popping his shield, tapping the well. Oh, the heals do end up coming through. Straight from the back line, just trying to dissuade their approach. Noblesse should have Indestructible. Tranquility used as well. Living Bomb going off, hitting everything. That's a lot of damage, but Trank is just too much.
Yeah, 2-minute cooldown on that Indestructible. We see SC Legion. It does not have the Arcane Barrier. It is going to get taken out and out. Moving is going in, trying to even get some more pressure out of it. That is a full HP bar. Jaina underneath that. Soldier is going to back out, and he does get taken out. It's 2 heroes right now. Is this enough to finish the game?
I think it is just too much damage available for Team DK, not losing a single hero. It is a total of 19 kills to just the 5 of Tempo Storm, and game number 1 will very much go the way of Team DK as the core falls down to 50%. A bit more, and that will do it.
Yes, well done. And a very, very decisive victory there. What are we looking at? 20-5, and we were looking for that moment where Tempo Storm would really bounce back and really find that late game moment. It just never came.
What was it, 5 dragons to 0?
Yeah. Pretty convincing.
Team Dragon Knight, boys.
I hear taking the objective in this game is a pretty good way to win matches.
It's a decent strategy. I mean, it only grants you a massive power for your team to propel yourself forward and have a 3-level lead, which they maintained pretty much post-16.
And every single time they took those dragons, it was always put to its maximum effectiveness. Would you agree, Grubby?
Yeah, I mean, all the DK really does is double damage against structures.
Just a little bit.
The objective in the game is taking down all the enemy structures. So
yeah.
It's pretty
Works
helpful.
out pretty well.
Well, I want to highlight one of the major interplays here of the game. Let's take a look at this Windows 10 game DVR replay here. We've got this heroic here for Leoric and Tomb. And it makes a lot of sense. You've got Leoric's Entomb, you've got 3 ranged heroes, so you don't need to pile into the Entomb area. You can flank and take down the opponent, so you don't get caught. Sometimes Entomb can work against yourself. We kind of see that here. The Gravity Lapse hit Zagara after getting a successful Entomb off, but just before it hit, Zagara got that Devouring Maw off. And we saw this many times in the game, at least 4 to 5 times. And I question myself, why are they all in the entrance of the Entomb? It can be like, it's a big problem when you take Entomb with a big melee comp, because that's how you try to follow up. You try to pile in there and get that kill. But with ranged heroes, you would think that doesn't have to happen. But maybe this was a bit far-fetched, trying to go in there, really killed them. And it's not the only time that it happened, although it's the only time that I actually want to show that. This was a big, I don't want to say momentum swing, because DK seemed to be winning from the beginning to the end, but it's kind of like they couldn't make the positioning work coming from different sides, even as ranged heroes, because you've also got that Johanna and the Jaina, very threatening if you get too near them. So I feel like Devouring Maw was a great counter to Leoric, and it kind of was the problem. They didn't have enough control, perhaps, with just Leoric as a warrior.
I mean, we saw it there. Maul really shut down any of those approaches in that game. Just beautiful Zagara play left and right. But you know what, guys? We're going to get ready for the second game of this best of 3 series. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few.
저랑 팀장이 제일 나이가 많거든요. 생활적인 부분에서 항상 동생들한테 싫은 소리 한 번도 안 하고 그냥 다 항상 좋게 풀어가는 게 장점이지 않나.
크레이지 무빙 한기수 선수는 되게 적들한테 위협적이게 딜을 잘 넣는 것 같아요. 스나이퍼 권태훈 선수는 저희 팀에서 가장 많은 영웅을 할 줄 아는 선수고요. 그리고 노블레스 최도준 선수는 일단 저희 팀의 오더를 하고 있고요. 그리고 그게 제일 중요한 것 같고, 그리고 뭐 판단이나 나머지 뭐 1, 2단 같은 피지컬이 필요한 영웅도 그런 거 다 잘하는 것 같아요. 누가 봐도 제일 잘하는 탱커 포지션이고, 그리고 뭐 스킬을 피하는 거나 뭐 맞추는 거 이런 거에 좀 많이 잘하는 것 같아요.
Well, since we're in Arizona, we've had a little bit of a scorpion problem. Myself, I've killed 6 scorpions. I have the record at the house. So
I have 1 scorpion kill. Yeah, it built a lot of synergy for us as a team to, overcome the scorpion threat. So I think, overall, it taught us some life lessons and brought us closer and stronger as a whole.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Heroes of the Storm World Championship opening week, where we are currently in the matchup between Team DK and Tempo Storm, where Team DK is sitting up 1-0.
So the big question is, what does Tempo Storm change about their draft, perhaps, their play style? And we talked a lot about this during the draft before we even got into game number 1. This was their comfort zone. This was what they used to run and were so dominant with, this triple range style, even Dragonshire being their strongest battleground.
Not anymore.
What now?
I don't know. I feel like there's a reason this composition was phased out. It isn't just a fat of the moment, fat of the month kind of thing. You just lack a little bit of control with just one warrior. You've got one way to initiate, which was the Entomb, but then you don't have something to follow up as in terms of stuns to really lock down your target and try and take them down. All you've got is Kael'thas, and in order for him to go to do a gravity lapse and a stun, he needs to move to a very predictable location, and that puts him at risk.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was a little shocked when they last picked Valla instead of something like Arthas. When you only have Leoric, it's really hard to have that kind of control that you want to have in these kind of battles, especially when there's rotations on Dragonshire are so dominant. I mean, that's the dominant playstyle. It always has been.
And it used to be like 3 ranged assassins with 1 support and 1 warrior against 3 ranged assassins, 1 support and 1 warrior. So, and that's also what they excelled in, that kind of ball game. But when you're up against 2 very tanky warriors like Johanna and Muradin, it's kind of hard to get through that mid shield to penetrate to the assassins in the back.
Yeah, especially even when you're going up against Malfurion. He's got all of that AoE, healing, and that was really what they were trying to dish out, just trying to wear the enemy team out. It just felt like they were countered at every single step. So that's something that's going to have to change. So perhaps, Grubby, like you were mentioning, we're going to need to see more hard control of the Warriors, so staying away from the Arthas and the Leoric style, perhaps shifting to what DK had in the forms of Johanna, Muradin, or maybe even just shy away from this style in general, because it got slapped down pretty hard.
Well, we're going to Battlefield of Eternity, and this is a battleground where heroes like Nazeebo, Zagara, really do have a higher preference, right? You can just throw down a Hydralisk, throw down some Roaches to chip away at the Immortals when you're fighting.
Sure.
So do you think this could be a Zagara ban game?
Yeah, I mean, I think every specialist goes up in value on this map, on Battlefield of Eternity. Zagara, Nazeebo, but even Gazlo, Abathur, Nazeebo, they all go up in value. I don't think Gazlo goes up in value.
I was buying in until you say Gazlo, maybe.
Technically goes up in value.
You're right about that.
Gazlo fans everywhere are so sad right now.
Even Murky is like, if I had to pick a map for Murky, this would be the one. However, it's probably Zagara and Abathur who have the highest value on this battleground. I expect very early Abathur bans. Although you could also allow the Abathur to slip through and then take Zeratul for yourself. It's quite possible if you want to play that way. Because I think at this point, Tempo Storm, I don't think they need to be afraid, but I don't think a gamble could exactly be a bad investment, because they're going up against probably the #1 favorite. They're behind 1 game. They're probably not going to like tough it out with 2 very straight up games. So to take a bit of a gamble and actually go for something like, okay, we're going to give you a hero and then we're going to like try and counter that, kind of trying to win tactically, might have a better shot than just saying, okay, hard against hard, standard drafts.
All right, Coop, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we're going to see those early game Abathur bans? You think we might see Mr. Nazeebo revealed, or crazy heroes that have been out of the meta maybe surface here?
I don't know about Mr. Nazeebo. I know that even a lot of these teams are sort of scrimming back and forth some of the other days, and whether they're revealing all of their strategies or not. Sometimes I even hear, yeah, we picked Nazeebo, even in the situation where it made a lot of sense not to. But as far as I understand it, the draft is ready to go for game number 2 between Tempo Storm and DK. So let's hop on over to that to see what those picks are going to be. And more curious to that is who's first pick, first ban, because I'm curious as to who actually picked this battleground. So Team DK is taking that first pick, which means that the battleground choice did go to Tempo Storm.
And Sonya being banned out very early.
So even though Tempo Storm lost and they had the choice to either get first pick or first battleground, they decided to go, we want to choose on which battleground. And they're going to remove Tassadar.
This is interesting. You remove Tassadar, in a lot of ways you're removing Vision. First pick will go to DK.
And Force Wall is very strong here. Lots of corridors. Also of ambush potential as well, so that Tassadar offers a lot here. Now DK, are they going to go with first pick Abathur? A classical first pick in the European scene. How about North America? Like on this battleground.
We haven't seen too much, but especially from DK's games over in Korea, that is something they very, very highly prioritize, especially Abathur. If you pair that up with the Illidan, that's always a very contested 2 heroes that we see together.
Right.
Not going to be the case here, though. Uther, that is also no surprise considering how strong of a hero is. You can see that kit. I think the big one that we want to highlight is that Divine Shield and the impact it has. Wasn't quite able to turn around the last game, but maybe for the reason that they just didn't have that quite explosive style of play that they need to go in. Maybe something like a Kerrigan, like we were talking about before.
I'm really expecting something weird out of Tempo Storm in this game. If they're going to Battlefield of Eternity, they have to have something very specific in mind, right? I mean,
yeah,
this is
I
it.
would think so.
This is the time.
You know, there's no holding anything back at this point. Even up through, you know, these Road to BlizzCon type events, it's like, okay, they're not going to try to show everything. They know the world is still watching and reviewing all of these games. Yeah, now's the time you really do pull those strategies out. And if you can take out perhaps the #1 repped team, DK, everybody really does feel that they are the strong favorites for this. You need to show a strong showing here.
So best support goes to Team DK, best assassin to Tempo Storm. Maybe they can take the best warrior in Muradin. It will be quite a common expected pick
there
here.
it is.
There we go. And
Very similar draft, actually, to what we saw last game, just a bit reversed for each side.
Would you say OPOP?
Would spam OPOP in the Twitch chat.
All right, Team DK, they now have 2 more picks before the second ban phase. Currently have Uther. They're going to want to pick up at least 1 assassin, probably a tank to go with it. Obviously, they run double warrior, sometimes even triple warrior quite frequently, so we'll probably see one of them here.
Now, the routine picks make the exceptional picks even more exciting, right? I was thinking maybe Kel'Thas. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing to have default picks, but there we go with the Abathur.
Could this be Abazera?
Maybe Illidan.
Ooh, could be too.
Yeah, if they put those two together, again, we were talking about that very early in the draft, how strong and highly prioritized it is for the Korean teams. And you know what's funny? Even way back to the very first showing of cross-regional play, it was always the Korean teams just said they just let us get what we want.
Right.
And that felt so weird. You know, it's like, why are they letting us take all of these picks? There it is.
There it
okay,
is.
the Illidan gets scooped up. So I'm sure DK is thinking that exact thing right now. Why are they letting us take these strong picks?
So if you don't know this, Illidan is a very much frontline melee assassin that dives in there. But Betrayer's Thirst, all of his damage dealt heals him for 20% of the damage dealt. So he's hard to eliminate enough. But then you throw Abathur Hat on top of him, which gives him shielding and additional attack speed, and Uther can Divine Shield him. I mean, he becomes such a menace. We call him the janitor because he just cleans up team fights.
Yeah, he doesn't have the highest damage output. He's not as necessarily the most survivable, but if he is very survivable, he can chase down with the best of them. He's the best chase hero, so he can capitalize on enemy missteps.
Just one big benefit to Tempo Storm, though, is they do have Muradin, and Reverberation
Yeah.
is a great response to Illidan. So
Sure.
they got to be saying to themselves, "Whew, glad we picked Muradin."
Yeah, it seems to be. But, you know, on that same token, the fact that they picked Illidan into Muradin, they've dealt with this in the past, and they still feel it is a strong enough hero to go forward.
Now, when you're going up against Illidan Uther, every now and then there's the ultimate evolution from Abathur, but mostly you're going up against 4 heroes. I like cutting up the enemy composition and separating them. There's 3 heroes who can do that best. Zagara with Devouring Maul, although it may be hard to hit on Team DK's heroes. You've got Zeratul with Void Prison and Anubarak with Cocoon. Taking out one of the crucial roles, which are underrepresented, you only have 4 heroes, could be really nice.
I think of those that you mentioned, I like Zeratul the best, so I'm curious to see if that is something Tempo Storm picks up later on. So we got to mention those bans before we move into the next set of picks. Tyrael taken away for Tempo Storm. Really just trying to take away that super dive potential.
Yeah.
If we were,
Yeah.
You know, even Sanctification, we saw
Even
that
more
a bit
shields?
earlier.
Yeah.
Right,
Ugh.
for sure. And Tyrande was also taken out on this side for DK.
Crucial.
Pairs so well with Muradin and
Yeah,
Jaina.
I mean, and against Illidan too. Hunter's
Yeah.
Mark on Illidan,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the last thing you want. But Tempo then picks up Brightwing, also another strong counter to Illidan that dives in. You throw Polymorph on, he
Yeah.
can't heal himself. You can even pick up Criterize later at level 16 and make Illidan very vulnerable. So
I mean, you have 2 supports really that disable enemy heroes. It's only Uther and Brightwing. They have the stun and they have the polymorph. So if you need disabling effects on Illidan to make sure he's not up and in your face as much, Brightwing is a nice pick.
Ooh, Sylvanas,
Wailing
another,
arrow.
yes,
Cool.
the silence
Yeah.
on top of
Interesting.
those
Smart.
polymorphs as well. That adds up to quite a few seconds. 5? Grubby, check my math, please.
For the silence,
If you have the 2 silences
Poly
stacked on
plus
top of each
wailing.
other.
it's 1.5 seconds
No,
on
4
polymorph.
seconds. 4
and,
seconds, right?
Yeah, 1.5 on polymorph, 2.5 on silence, and with the bigger polymorph at level
Greater-
16,
greater
it becomes
poly,
2.5 seconds. So then it's fine.
All right, I was right. Making that assumption. All right, yes, I'm the best.
And
I got
if
it.
you go, if you go for the super, the storm tier talent on Sylvanas at level 20, you can have.
Grubby, please.
We're getting
Yeah,
too deep.
that's
We're getting too
seconds.
much Grubby.
Silence.
No math on stream. Thala has been picked up by Team DK.
Now, what? Well, you don't have Tyrael anymore in the deep diver warrior style, and you don't have Muradin. Who do you take? Could
Okay.
be ETC. It could be.
They've been known to run that. That's not a bad option.
Diablo.
Somebody that can really dive in, get. Oh. All right.
The Panda himself, Mr. Chen, his first appearance in this tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. And,
And,
really the big thing about Chen is, of course, that Fortifying Brew. He's just such a difficult hero to take down. He can chug. He gets a shield, which was recently sort of buffed up a little bit, but also this heroic you guys are seeing right here. Storm, Earth, and Fire. He splits himself into 3 health bars. As long as he's able to channel for a short second or so, he's able to split into 3 heroes that you have to take down, and then he goes back to his original form. So a lot of in-your-face, doing a lot of auto attack damage. You have Volo behind it. DK, they have a very, very, again, in-your-face strategy that's going to be difficult to deal with.
So does Tempo need more control here,
Yeah.
more damage? What do you think is better here,
I mean,
Grubby?
you could go Kael'thas and do a stun on Chen and stuff, but I think Kael'thas will be kiting backwards all the time. That is to say, attack and move back because of Illidan and Chen advancing so rapidly. I see probably the best choice for me now would be Anubarak. I have trouble finding another hero that will fulfill that spot as well as him.
Oh, this there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
yeah.
I have no trouble finding another hero. No, that's a really...
I mean, talk about the
Tempo Storm drafted
playmaker type
really
heroes.
well.
Yeah, I mean, Void Prison can just absolutely set up your team for the perfect plays that you might end up needing. If you're being dove upon by the double heroes, Illidan and Chen, you just throw a big Void Prison onto even just Uther. You deny Uther from throwing down Divine Shield, and it's enough.
So, you know, we're all really excited about this Chen pick, but, you know, situations you don't put Chen into where you can get stunned. We have Muradin, we've got Silence, we have Poly, you know, the Wailing Arrow. Is this a bit risky? Maybe they're being a bit cocky here? I don't know.
Yes, he can get stunned, but you have to remember, of course, there's always Divine Shield as a panic button. You've got Abathur's Hat, and Illidan. He's so hard to ignore that, like, you're like, Chen is probably like the third priority after Illidan and Vala. Ideally, you would like to take out Vala, well, Abathur, but he's always, you know, he's always in base. But you would like to take out Vala, but Illidan is the one you must worry about. And then Chen is like, you can't really focus on him because Illidan is busy with you. So it's all about positioning. If Chen is out of position, yeah, sure. But
well, we saw their display of body blocking in that last game. And if you have 3 bodies, you can do a lot with Chen. But we'll have to see how well it works out here in game number 2. DK currently sitting up 1-0 versus Tempo Storm. And we're just about ready to hop in there. Kubi, you ready?
Oh, of course I'm ready. What do you mean? We have Chen in here with this Illidan. It just feels like DK got their dream composition moving forward. And I'm excited to see what they can do with it. How is Tempo Storm going to battle back on Battlefield of Eternity in game number 1? Let's take a look at the teams.
All right, on the blue side, it is Tempo Storm, where Arthlon will be playing as Sylvanas, Dreadnought on Brightwing, KO will be playing Jaina, Soldier on Muradin, and Zuna running up the team with his favorite Zeratul.
Fabled, yes. All right. And over on the red side, already up 1-0. We're going to have crazy moving as beyond the Vala. Jehun, the captain on Uther. Noblesse will be playing that flex role with the Illidan. SCSC on Chen. And Sniper, who's always in that specialist role, is going to be on the Abathur.
I love the Halloween skin. Just in the season, the festive Skull Abathur? What's it called?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Skull Abathur.
Good.
Yeah, good. I named it. Good job.
All right, so we can take a look at the builds. Brightwing, no surprise there to see a phase shift style build. It's been the big shift, if you will, over these, you know, Brightwing getting back into the meta. It has been about that mobility, but also that shield that we're very likely to see at level 7.
Yeah, a lot of the time when we see Brightwing, it's paired with something like Tassadar, maybe Tyrande, or something else, but the lone Brightwing is just such a good response to Illidan alone. So I'm glad to see that hero resurfacing in the meta, because Brightwing, just the mobility alone, especially when it comes to soaking a lane while they're fighting over the Immortals, can be quite strong.
Crazy moving is showing us exactly what we were talking about last game, whether you go the multi-shot or you go Hungering Arrow. And it's always in the face of those melee assassins that weren't present before. But where there's a Zeratul, there are situations where you could get caught out, singled out by that damage dealer, and having the Hungering Arrow style build is going to go a long way in that sense.
This is a pretty tough lane for Zuna to defend against both Illidan and Abathur Hat, which appears here and there. And we're going to see a lot of damage thrown onto these towers, as he does not have anyone in the sides of coming down to help. But in the bottom lane, it's quite the same story. Sylvanas, Jaina blowing up first tower already has fallen. So this pressure by Tempo Storm already paying off.
The counter response with a little bit of damage dealt by Noblesse on the Illidan in the top lane. Is it enough? They are going to have to respond much akin to what you would see on Haunted Mines. You kind of have to babysit that Sylvanas, right?
Yeah, all right. Well, the Immortals will be spawning in 4 seconds, and these guys spawn in the middle of the battleground. You have to fight over them. Defend your Immortal, attack your opponents. It's all strategic as to which you value more.
This, you know, I'm curious to see where Abathur is going to go with the rest of the build. Adrenal Overload is amazing on Illidan, but having that Mind build, especially the slow at level 7, is so good at controlling the middle portions of this battleground. So there's a lot of different ways that Abathur can build, and it will affect a lot of the control and rotations as we go into that mid to late game.
Okay, Tempo Storm just barely winning the first portion. The halftime show has begun, and the Immortals will reset. So Tempo Storm have a slight lead, and they are currently soaking top and bottom with Brightwing and Zeratul. So they're going to have a small soak advantage, but they will likely end up losing up. No, it's very close. No, they actually win. So they soaked and won the first Immortal. Great stuff by Tempo Storm.
Yep, but they have that Abathur in the bottom lane too. Doing a little bit in terms of that, but they have to be careful. So what is the push? Do they split push? Do they have the Immortal pushing in this top lane?
I like the split push.
Doesn't have a lot of shields. Yeah, I think the split push does make sense. You can kind of distract against the enemy team in that sense.
And so Zeratul will stay in the top lane to soak experience. Just make sure you maximize your XP as often as possible. And the Immortal doesn't have any shields, really, so it's not going to do a ton of damage. Tempo, just playing really passively. I like the fact that they're not committing to taking out that tower when it really doesn't give them that much of an advantage if they were to lose a few heroes. Definitely not worth it.
Yeah, probably the best way to try to maximize what you can get out of this early objective. Much like what we saw on Dragonshire, just getting towers early to extend that experience advantage, which is now sitting at about a level.
Yeah, I mean, this is great for Tempo Storm. I mean, structurally, that's why they have the lead here in game number 2. Great start for them, going towards level 7.
Okay, focused attack style build for Zeratul. Are we going to see that fall through of the first aid? It's been kind of a contested pick moving into level 7, and we are going to see the Adrenal Overload on the Abathur, so even more attack speed available for Illidan.
Yeah, the only way they could invest more in Illidan is maybe pick up Reach on Uther, because they got Protective Shield, they got Adrenal Overload, they've got the Sustain, they've got the Dive Buddy Chen, so that's really just the keystone to their entire strategy in Game 2.
Chen also taking his special version of Block, which completely negates a single auto attack, recharging a bit faster than the original Block ability, so he's going to be even tankier, more of a nuisance. They do take that Mercenary camp in the bottom lane, so the Khazra will be something that has to be dealt with from Tempo Storm. They are already in the bottom lane.
That was a really confident play by DK. Like right under the nose of Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm was well aware of what they were doing, but DK did not care. They said, try to fight us.
Zuna taking out a well in the top lane. Feels very comfortable to do so. He knows that all the action was happening bottom. Take all the advantages you can get. Not going to get a tower, not going to get a fort, obviously. But it is very annoying, especially the distance between those fort and keep wells.
If you manage to take out both wells, it can net your team a big advantage when you're fighting over these early game Immortals. So really smart play there. But both teams, they're just going to opt to pick up their Fallen Shaman, the Bruiser camps here on this battleground, and they will provide a nice distraction while the next Immortal spawn. Very well timed.
Level 7 just around the corner. DK desperately needs to hit that to be on at least even talent tier footing for this Immortal fight.
Okay, Tempo actually looking like they might want to pressure this bottom lane, but with their Fallen Shaman, they say, you know what, that's enough of distraction. Fortifications are down for them. Sylvanas defending the Fallen Shaman in the top lane, but this means they are down a hero. Frightwing phase shifting in. The shields are there for KO. KO trying to back on up, but Illidan's dive is just too much, especially with the damage of Crazy moving in the back. And now Dreadnought all alone, does not have Blink Heal quite yet, falls. 3 heroes could go down here. Zuna incredibly low himself does go down. A huge play for Team
Soldier
DK.
as well. Are they really going to be able to take this? They know exactly what they can get away with.
Wow, what looked like might be like a great strategic situation for Tempo Storm turns into just a devastating advantage. Oh, wow, that's big.
You want, like, what? Why is he sitting up in the top lane? A bit of a mistake, soak-wise, able to take something back.
I mean, Crisis Control from Arthalon. KO and Arthalon already working on this. Brightwing phase shifting in. Sure, the Immortal will be in favor of Team DK, but I thought it would be far more than this, and it currently is. Quite even right now.
Yeah. A big thing that I want to point out in that last fight is you can just kind of stare at Illidan's health bar throughout the fight. And you mentioning, you know, his trade, he's got the first aid. His health bar just goes down and up as Tempo Storm desperately tries to take him out with what burst damage they have, especially in the form of Jaina. It's just to no avail. It just continued, dropped, and then goes back up. Auto attacks, burst healing from Uther in that first aid as well. That is going to be the story of a lot of the fights moving forward, so pay attention to that.
I like the defensiveness of Tempo Storm. They're actually walking around, activating a lot of the mines when they're not in a bad situation. But Arthalon needs to get that wave out. He does get away. Right-wing phase shifting, and the shields are there just in time. You need to get that big polymorph, and yes, they get the start off onto Illidan. Illidan falls early. SESC will end up falling as well. 2-0 in favor of Tempo Storm, and the Dwarf Toss looking for that Storm Bolt on that. Crazy moving. Can they do it? Do they have the response? No. Crazy moving gets so low from the Blizzard.
You know Zuna's going in for this. No, he actually backs out. He's learned some restraint since the Americas Champions.
That's good. Polymorph goes off. Dwarf Toss in, and that is another kill for Tempo Storm.
Okay, and they have that half-level lead, but more importantly, a lot of heroes taken out. They continue to get some soak. Zuna, Zuna is hunting for the Abathur. Is he going to be able to get the takedown? No, actually was able to hearth back or burrow across the map in time. They have themselves a nice advantage, though.
Talk about restraint, though. That's a situation where Tempo Storm was all really low, and they had like this delicious-looking Immortal just ripe for the picking, and they restrained themselves from pushing into a situation where they could have lost 3 heroes and then lost this entire Immortal phase.
Yeah, it was a great turnaround. So we do have level 10 now, Void Prison, Avatar, Water Elemental, the Wailing Arrow, and the Blink Heal. All the things I think we expected to see, but is going to be very critical in terms of having control over that Illidan, especially that Wailing Arrow.
Okay, well, this Immortal a bit stronger than the previous. Of course, over time they get stronger, but this one has 50% of its shields. It will be going down the top lane once again, and Tempo could count a split push if they like, but having Sylvanas can really amplify the utility of this map objective.
For sure, they do have a lot of options open. Level 10 also reached for DK. That is going to be Metamorphosis, the ultimate evolution, Divine Shield, Strafe, Storm, Earth, and Fire, which we were highlighting for you guys earlier. Now, I think the big thing that you want to watch for in a lot of these fights that are going to be coming up, Metamorphosis will be popped. He's going to try to make sure that he can hit a lot of heroes so he can get that health bonus. But we've seen a lot of teams pick up Zeratul for this exact reason. If they can just throw a VP in the back line, that can go a long way to isolate Illidan.
Zuna did a lot of damage to Crazy, moving, still has Void Prison available. Divine Shield used early in the battle to keep Illidan good and safe as he dashes forward. The shield's there for KO, and Metamorphosis is used, but Illidan falls in an instant. Tempo Storm looking to press the issue. They've got Jehun, who will end up falling here. The Polymorph has been used in Haunting Wave, not going forward. They're going to find themselves an Abathur clone to blow up. 2-0 for Tempo.
Still very well done. Not even able to get much use out of that Uther after being taken out. A great silence. We talked about combining those silences together to have that control over Illidan. Ended up being a big deal. They didn't even need to use the Void Prison to have that additional control. So far, things are looking very good in this sort of adapted style for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, I mean, Tempo Storm known to be a late game team, and they're ahead in the early game. So this is a big deal for them. I mean, sitting up a level ahead of DK, picking up aggressive mercenary camps, spreading out, putting too much of a threat on the map, forcing Abathur to stop soaking, all huge things for Tempo right now.
So we know that DK is a very aggressive team, especially in their early game rotations. What do we need to see changing out of them is perhaps a bit more of the bait style. They know all of the focus is going to be on Illidan in these fights, so they see him extend forward, and that's when the Wailing Arrows come out. That's when we see the Polymorphs. Perhaps try to use that to your advantage, throw the hero forward, but then juke back to try to bait out some of these skill shots.
Yeah, and I really think what they want to do is just find people out of rotation. I mean, they've got a great composition for the body blocking, but Tempo is just sticking together. They're taking small advantages, but always pulling back, and that's why this is working out so well for them.
DK rotating to the bottom, going to try to take another Cosra camp, and this Fallen Shaman camp will go to Tempo Storm, battling a bit out with these mercenary pushes.
Okay, level 13 to 11, a talent tier advantage on the side of Tempo Storm, who know that they just picked up that camp, so they're looking to press the issue. SC moving, going to be able to back up here.
Okay, so we do have that Spell Shield version of that Pixie Dust for Brightwing. Going to do quite a bit, especially against that Hungering Arrow style for Vala. The other picks, we're going to see that Ice Block. We do have that Thunder Strike for the extra burst damage in the Wormhole, which was recently tuned down to only having the 2 seconds before you can blink back.
Still, this is a tool that makes Zuna so much more scary. He can now blink in, throw out his abilities, and then just blink away. And it's just a great form of poking. Considering they just have Uther for the support, if you can burn his heal, you can set yourself up for nice timings where he's not going to have that heal in that heartbeat they might want.
Third Immortal phase popping up. Tempo Storm, will they be successful in taking this this third one?
Oh, they are way ahead in terms of the damage output. I mean, just blowing it up. A nice advantage, 50% lead in terms of the first phase. In the pre-show, the halftime show.
The halftime show. All right, so they are going to continue to work on this. I want to sort of point out the effectiveness that Abathur has had as we move into this mid-game. Usually you're going to get that soak, but I think Zuna has really put enough pressure and threat on the map that he hasn't been able to comfortably soak across the battleground.
All right, Zuna does manage to get his Wormhole off, just barely escaping before he's hit by that stun. Nicely done, but Tempo, I mean, look at the Immortal health bar. You can see that on the right. So in favor of Tempo Storm right now.
They're just sort of guarding it. DK knows that this is sort of the last chance. That pressure is exactly what I was talking about. Zuna is going to say, oh, you thought it was okay to just be even in front of your gate? No, you sit in base and AFK because that is what I'm going to make sure that you're doing. They can now move forward and take this Immortal out because they don't have that symbiote.
I think I just heard Zuna laughing. He is giddy with those kills. I mean, his favorite thing is to roam around and pick off people. Getting a free slug, there's nothing better.
All right, so those mines continuing to be a nuisance. We did sort of see the best of both worlds in terms of building into...
Whoa, 75% of you guys think that Tempo Storm will beat DK.
Wow.
Don't forget you guys can vote for us here, but wow, getting a takedown on Sylvanas and Dreadnought. That is a sign that DK is very much still in this game.
Zuna actually waiting in a very scary spot. If they burn him, okay, all right, he does get out at the last moment. I think he has to be careful. He should be safe here with the Immortal still pushing in this bottom lane.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage being done here. I mean, just tearing through these fortifications of DK, 650 XP per tower that falls in these back lines, and it's not something you just want to let go.
Yeah, especially this
unattended.
late into the game. You know, we're getting 13 plus minutes into the game. These things don't fall quite as quickly as they did in the early game. Not quite enough to get them into level 16, but they will have something similar to the advantage that DK had in game 1. Tempo Storm is now battling back with it.
Yeah, Tempo Storm, they sent 2 of their members back to base to just replenish their mana, replenish their health bars, and they're going to pick up this mercenary camp in the top lane, which will grant them level 16, which is a pretty big timing window for them to make something happen.
Okay, and there it is. It's going to be picked up. I'm curious to see some of these picks, whether we have more burst damage. I think that could make a lot of sense for Jaina. We do have that Cold Embrace, so it could be quite a few vulnerability talents picked up. We do have a polymorph upgrade, whether that is the
Greater or Critter Eyes, yeah.
We'll have to see.
It is Greater Polymorph, so it's increased duration, Northern Exposure picked up there for Jaina. So that is going to be their increased 25% damage for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's going to just exacerbate, just move forward. You isolate the Illidan and blow them up as fast as you possibly can, stacking those vulnerabilities.
Okay, a lot of power there. Abathur soaking aggressively, knowing that Zeratul in this bottom lane is safe to do that in this instance, especially with a mercenary camp. That's going to apply a lot of pressure to Tempo Storm's top fort. But Tempo, they're more concerned about taking out this bottom keep.
That was with Sylvanas there with the trait, the Black Arrows, able to, disable that from firing back. I think that Tempo Storm feels they might have overextended in this case, especially now that they see the ultimate evolution.
Yeah, but that's a heroic spent.
Yes, it
now,
is.
they will succeed in taking out this top fort, which is a nice win for Team DK, and that's going to get them level 16, so Tempo Storm's timing window, well, it's expired.
Complete retreat as that evolution is now expiring at this point.
That's what
Tempo
my
Storm?
esports team would be called, complete retreat.
Jake loves his rhymes a little bit too much. All right, we're going to probably see some mercenary camps. I think that's probably the best thing that they can do just before this Immortal pops up if they want to try to provide a little bit more split push. No, trying to set up maybe perhaps for a bit of a flank.
A lot of damage going off onto Illidan. You have to use Divine Shield and Metamorphosis in an instant, but that is not how you want to initiate. We see Reverberation having a huge impact. The Dwarf toss forward, feeling aggressive. Stormbolt connects, and Illidan goes down. VP locking down Uther so they can burn out the rest of the team. Tempo Storm is sitting in a great spot here, and we see that Uther will fall very quickly.
They're taking what they can get. This should really signal the backing up. There's no way they're going to be able to take out Chen at this point, but they're left with Valla, Abathur, and the remnants of Chen at this point. They should be able to get themselves another Immortal.
Yeah, they're sitting in a great spot, burning through that health bar far more quickly than Chen and Valla can do on their own. The halftime phase will initiate in just a moment, but Tempo sitting in a wonderful spot right now.
Mines planted around everywhere. I think Tempo Storm is feeling quite comfortable with this. Perhaps Zeratul getting Zuna onto something that's a bit more aggressive is the key that they needed to put some pressure onto DK.
I mean, he's thrived in that hero inland in the past, and Tempo Storm, they're not even worried about trying to battle at the bottom Immortal because they know that the longer they stall out this phase, the closer the enemy heroes do return into this fight. But Zuna taking a lot of damage right now. The phase shift, the Blink Heal, not going to be enough to keep Zuna alive, so they're going to end up trading out one hero in favor of picking up an Immortal that's going to have half power.
Still have a mercenary camp in the bottom lane as well. Now keep in mind the Immortals only push out in the enemy's strongest lane. So while they have done some work in the bottom lane, they are going to see that Immortal pushing out in the top.
Okay, well, it looks like Team DK wants to be a little bit more aggressive, knowing that they have a hero advantage for another 25 seconds. But as the Immortal spawns, well, it's going to provoke their attention to chase it down this lane.
So what's crazy about that last fight, too, is they had the Divine Shield almost immediately, but the response was so quick, and it still wasn't enough.
Oh my goodness, Abathur stuck around a little bit too long and falls here. Another uncharacteristic mistake, losing an Abathur, and in turn, they're going to end up losing this bottom keep. Tempo Storm with the plays!
Yeah, they can back out at this point and almost guarantee themselves 2 keeps. That's going to put a lot of pressure catapult-wise moving forward. Sniper getting sniped.
This is, this is like such a tough spot for Team DK. Tempo. I mean, it's not over yet. Oh, wow, yeah, that is quite low.
Okay, the core is already starting to take some fire. They have to be treading very carefully at this point. DK, one slip up could mean we're going to game number 3.
I'm so surprised at how long that Fallen Shaman managed to stay alive in this game. I mean, it really just pushed down the entire lane itself. Noblesse in the front line looking to do stuff. Abathur almost back alive. The Hat will see engaged, or the Heroic. We do see Illidan does end up falling. The Panda Pals falling apart. Chen gonna end up getting stunned here. VP locking down the rest of the team. The Polymorph goes off on
Haunting Wave over the wall, and Tempo Storm, I think they have done it. We're going to a game number 3, Kubi.
Wow, very impressive play from Tempo Storm. If there was any question that they have shown up for BlizzCon 2015, I think that is out of the water. They just said, you want these picks? You really want to take Abathur Illidan together? We will show you why that is not the dominant, not the strong strategy. Really well done. I cannot wait to see what we have coming for us in Game 3.
I once knew a team called Symbiote Gaming. They were largely considered to be the best team in the world for the first year of Heroes of the Storm. That team is now known as Tempo Storm, and that is the team that we just saw show up today.
Very, very impressive play. A lot of just, they had a strategy in mind, DK, and it was shut down at every single corner. They did not have a single fight that really went in their favor. A couple takedowns here and there, but it just really looked like their strategy was just completely flat. Grubby, what do you think?
Yeah, there was this one moment from Team DK where I was like, uh-oh, is this going to be another Snowball DK victory, where they dived over the gate with Chen and Illidan, and they got that triple kill there. But everything else was just Tempo Storm excelling, showing a completely different Tempo Storm from last game. It was so cool to see.
You know, as soon as we saw the Illidan pick, it's almost like Tempo Storm was grinning. The Brightwing pick was like, there was no hesitation. They knew what they wanted to do. They said, Polymorph just shuts this down. And I have to be a little bit critical. The Chen pickup never really had the effect that they wanted.
Once. When they dived over the gate together.
That was it.
Yeah, you can get in and you can get out. I was just thinking again, we talked a little bit about it in the draft, but the Zeratul able to disable the backline while Illidan was jumping in came into play after all. But also, as we mentioned at the beginning of the draft, whenever Abathur is picked on a battleground like this, the idea is that he helps his teammates with that symbiote hat on while being physically with his fragile body in the lane, where he can soak experience just from the minion waves crashing. But Zeratul kind of puts a stop to that. He is able to find Abathur now and then. Once that actually happened exactly like that, but a few times he was just caught a little bit carelessly. There are a number of moments that I want to show here which really illustrate Tempo Storm coming together as a team here and doing much better. Here we see Illidan jumping in. For all intents and purposes, it looks like Sylvanas will get the follow-up death there. They're jumping in really deep, but the face shield from Brightwing saves her, and suddenly Illidan and Chen are too far out. And they get that kills there. Very nice, very important for Tempo Storm as they get that. Now, here is another one. Zuna jumping on the backline there on Vala. Gonna pause that for a second here. Vala is now vulnerable. The next time Zeratul gets his combination again, she becomes a lethal target. At the same time, Illidan needs Uther support just as much. So I'm gonna play it again. There we see Illidan with the Divine Shield jumping forward. Zeratul snaking around there in the backline. Metamorphosis is used and immediately blown up. Gonna pause it, using that Wailing Arrow on Illidan instantly because his Metamorphosis location is being broadcast. And then with the follow-up kills there on Uther. Very, very cool moment there as they get these kills here. There is another moment here. They've got 2 kills here, and they keep getting the Immortal after the first time. There we see Zeratul effect there on the Abathur. Like, he wasn't even that far in lane, and I'm gonna pause it for a sec. Like, why was he even there? Like, he wasn't close enough to be able to get the experience. He just wanted some Locust push. But there we go, was taken down. And as we see the pause here, Illidan was moving up into the smoke screen while the entire team of Tempo Storm was rotating down. And I could hear from far away, take down the Illidan, I'm gonna Stormbolt, I'm gonna Polymorph, and we got it all. And there we go. Okay, everything was used. We see Wailing Arrow was used, gonna pause it again. This instant Divine Shield Metamorphosis is a panic button for DK. This wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna Divine Shield you, you don't have to use Metamorphosis. They used both escapes immediately, which meant that this Divine Shield effectively isn't being used for 1.5 seconds.
That's right, yes, because there's some of that charge up time to the ability as well. So
I'll play that again. And as Jake was saying, you don't want to use this like that. You want to actually dodge lethal damage with both of those heroics separately. And there we go. Illidan gets taken down. Void Prison will get follow-up kills. And this just looks like the beginning of the end here, really.
Well, that was a great Windows 10 game DVR replay. Grubby, thanks for that. I mean, Tempo Storm, they showed up. Like we said, excellent play. They knew exactly what they had to do, shut down the Illidan, and that's what they did.
Yeah, so we're going to have to see, was the Zeratul really just kind of a one-trick pony going forward? Do they have other tricks up their sleeve that they can throw at DK because their traditional style didn't really seem to work out? Let's take a look at what Tempo Storm had to say about their strengths moving forward.
When it comes to team comps, Zuna usually does most of the drafting. He studies a lot of the other regions very intensively and knows just what the meta is and how it works.
I think Dreadnought, as our captain, does a really good job of making sure that we don't make excuses for when we are, falling short or having problems within the team.
KO, his biggest strength is definitely his consistency. He's never going to be the player who goes, holy cow, crazy plays. He has moments where he shines heavily, but at the same time, he's the player. He's going to be the one who feeds and turns your team to have a huge negative lead. He's just constantly showing that he can put up top numbers and never do poorly. Soldier's biggest strength is definitely being the initiator and leader in team fights for our team. Always making sure that we start every team fight with an upper hand over our opponents and never are sitting on the back foot when we have to fight. I think Arthalon's biggest strength is that things come naturally a lot to him. He's very much so a person who, when we don't have very much practice on a certain character, we can put him on and he'll be able to play it, and that's something that we value heavily.
The Iron Horde will prevail, and all that stand against us will die.
Storm the portal!
Rise up, Iron Horde! Bring your war chief, their heads. This was not our destiny. You will all die!
Just you.
You must answer for your crimes, Garrosh. All I did for the Horde! You chose your own destiny. How dare you show your face here, Kul'dan? You men have died for nothing. There is only one choice. I will build a new Horde. I will forge an unstoppable weapon. They will defy you. Kul'dan failed. Jaina is free!
You don't think it's over?
I fear this is only beginning.
그렇게 걱정은 크게 되지 않고 한국 팀들이 가장 강하다고 생각을 하고 계속 게임을 했었기 때문에 경기 스타일 차이만 잘 보완한다면은 큰 문제 없을 것 같아요. 어차피 한국이 가장 세다고 생각을 하고, 그래서 저희 한국팀 다 이기고 올라와서 저희가 우승할 것 같으니까 즐기다 가시면 될 것 같아요.
Welcome back to the Heroes of the Storm World Championship, where we are currently in the middle of Tempo Storm versus Team DK. Tied up 1-1, and Kubi, Team DK, they said Korea is their only competition.
Yeah.
But Tempo Storm just proved that's not the case.
Yeah, I think so. Almost got the impression that they felt they were invincible coming into this event. And we see that there are some glimpses of weakness in their armor, if you will, and perhaps it is the Zeratul. And like the question that I was asking before we went to that break, and I was posing to perhaps the Zuna, what other tricks does Tempo Storm have that they can kind of throw DK off with?
Grubby, The power of Korea has been known in many, many esports, but do you believe that Tempo Storm is capable of upsetting them here in Game 3?
Americans in competitive gaming have always been very powerful with their tactical and strategical thinking. In Warcraft 3, Americans particularly shined in team games. It was predominantly a 1v1 game, but in 2 versus 2 games, even players which maybe were mechanically a little bit less good than Europe, and in particular Korea, they were able to win by teamwork and strategy. And I feel like that's what we saw here. Even looking back at it, even more so than before, I thought it was a very intelligent draft. And not only that, but they also played very well. They coordinated better, they had a better momentum, they just played really well. So they kind of beat them, I feel like, in 2 ways, both in the draft as well as the actual execution.
Well, game number 3, the final game of this best of 3, will in fact be on Sky Temple. This is a very large battleground where we do often see Abathur prioritized. Are they going to feel comfortable picking Abathur again?
Well, it's one thing, right? Like, if you are a supporter of Tempo Storm, I know they have a lot of fans, we need to like not get too far ahead of ourselves. Also to admit, okay, they picked Chen. Now, Chen is a good hero. He recently got improved a little bit, but he's not like top of the notch in general. It seemed like he fit the draft as well in a degree because he is able to be Illidan's diving buddy.
Yeah.
And if you've ever done scuba diving, you know you always need a buddy.
That's right.
But since he is a little bit less of an ordinary hero, there's a potential that Team DK underestimated Tempo Storm just a tad. And I don't think you can do that anymore in a 1 versus 1. Situation in terms of the score.
Well, without any further delay, the draft is ready to roll for game number 3 here on Sky Temple between Tempo Storm and Team DK.
Jake, you mentioned that the battleground is going to be Sky Temple, and I think the question is going to be who's the first pick? Who's the first band? Who actually ended up choosing this battleground? We'll find out in just a second.
And it looks like the battleground was picked by DK. So Tempo Storm, they get the first ban, and then they'll have the first pick. Still worried about that Sonya.
So this is curious. I think we saw this from GIA earlier. They picked Sky Temple as their counterpick map.
Sure.
And it felt as though, you know, this is a very common battleground that we see teams, especially in NA. I'm sure for Europe as well. You know, we'd see a lot of teams going here, and it's not something that's really going to throw them off. So why give up the first pick? What do they have in store for this battleground in particular? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think it's just that on the most classical battlegrounds, they feel that the best team will win. They have confidence that they are it. Yeah, maybe something as innocuous and simple as that.
It could be. The fear of Tassadar is there.
We heard it, man. We've heard it through the grapevine. Is Tassadar very high contested rate in Korea? Almost always first ban. Like that kind of shielding, keeping people alive, and the vision he provides.
Yes.
And there's going to be a number of people in Twitch chat and people who are watching this competition on ESPN and so forth. They might be wondering, like, Tassadar, wait a minute, I thought he was bad.
Yeah.
No, he came back.
Yes, he's had quite a few changes in this most recent patch. They most importantly took down the cooldown of his shield. You can always have his shielding up, and it's more impactful if he's throwing it on his allies rather than himself. On top of that, you know, they made some changes to his Archon, so he's kind of working a little bit like a support. Even we're seeing some Force Wall being used to very good positional advantage.
A support that works like a support.
That's crazy talk, Jake. Like, what is that?
Well, you're making, but it makes sense because he was kind of like a utility / vision support. So, yeah.
All right, well, speaking of supports, Uther, first pick here for DK, and also going for that #1 warrior. How many drafts have we seen where we get Jaina, Uther, and Murden as the first 3 heroes?
I think we can move past that and see what happens next. Like they're kind of like some of the most staple heroes in their class. This is a bit more special pick, but we've come to recognize this now from Tempo Storm, right? You were mentioning it before. Wailing Arrow, being able to capitalize on advantages with the Black Arrow push. However, this time it won't be used to bolster like a big meanie like the Immortal. It's just like Sky Temple, so they like her combat potential.
So we're seeing Leoric again. And I'm immediately the alarms are going off,
Jake,
right?
you scared?
Is he going to be the lone warrior? Is he going to have his Bruiser Bro Arthas? Is he going to go march to the Black King? Like, what are the decisions made here for this matchup?
And what's interesting is that DK actually takes Malfurion out. And that was, I feel, one of the key pieces in that first game.
Staying alive against all
that. Yes, it was
that.
about staying alive, and you knew that Tempo Storm was looking to go for that big AoE style.
So what Tempo Storm, they're removing Abathur, so to a degree, they're worried about like the XP soak and bolstering like maybe a melee assassin or something, but maybe they even want to bait out an Illidan. Maybe they like playing against it.
So this is such a risk though, right? Removing Abathur is smart, but Tyrande is a hero that Korea does not like Tyrande. They've openly said they don't think that Tyrande is like the norm pick until this patch. When we talked to them, they talked about Shadowstalk making him much more viable, and paired with Uther and Muradin can be quite devastating.
Okay, we see the Arthas picked up along with Avala. This does leave something very similar to if they want to pick up Brightwing against Zeratul, which had a lot of work done in that last game. I don't think that there's necessarily that dive potential that they have to try to counteract against. We can see Arthas's kit here. He's got that Death Coat. I think the big one is going to be that Howling Blast along with the Frozen Tempest. Really does give you a lot of rotational ability. We're very likely to see some of that. He's always going to be in that front line putting the pressure on.
I think he's a strong pick, but I also think it's a counter pick to what Tempo Storm was needing. Problem now for Tempo Storm, most of the warriors have been banned or taken already, like the common ones. They can't take Arthas anymore, who's a great buddy for Leoric. Tyrael would not be a stun. You've suddenly got 4 heroes that don't have stun.
Perhaps?
Johanna would be fine,
yeah,
I
that's
think.
True.
Yeah,
that's
Johanna
true.
Leoric would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, but no Zeratul, which means they still need a support.
Oh,
So
wow.
it is
They're not
going to
gonna
be...
have stuns.
Yeah,
I think that's a huge mistake.
Could be
risky.
Brightwing still.
Oh, yeah,
Brightwing
sure.
did work out well in the last game, especially
It's
when
not
you
a
couple the silences together.
Yeah, it's not a stun, but it is a disable, which is important.
Right.
First, take look at Zeratul. We've got that control again. Zuna playing very well on the Zeratul last game, finishing off critical heroes in that Vala. But yeah, if they don't take Brightwing, they don't have anything to disable an enemy hero.
Yeah.
They've got some slows. Sure, they've got Wailing Arrow, but they don't have anything. I mean,
It's
even
risky.
with Brightwing, no stuns, which means that it will be easier for Team DK to disengage from all kinds of things.
So they do go for Brightwing, though. I think that is a very intelligent pickup.
They needed it, right?
Yeah. She has the mobility as well.
Now, the cool thing is, anytime Team DK catches a 1v1 against Tempo Storm or a 2v1, that can become a 2 versus 3.
Yes.
With Zeratul, maybe he was near, you don't know, he's cloaked, he's invisible. And Brightwing suddenly jumping in. So Tempo Storm can potentially bait with Leorix or with the Jaina, like, oh no, I'm alone. Boom. Surprise.
We'll see how masterful that Brightwing play is.
Now, this is a very interesting last pick, Raynor.
Yeah.
You know, he's very much an auto attack hero. He's going to rely on really buffing up his auto attacks, especially if we see that Giant Killer. Usually we see this hero picked into multiple warrior compositions.
Yes.
And this is not at all the style that we have coming out of Tempo Storm. Are they really going to be able to get the full potential out of Raynor?
The funny thing about Raynor is he works great with many warriors and he works great against many warriors.
Yeah.
With many because he has high damage output, adds damage to everyone, and is well protected, having no natural escape, only a bit of bonus healing. But he also works great against many warriors. He's only against 1 in Leoric, so do you guys like that pick?
Well, I mean, I'm really just thinking back to the MSI MGA finals where we saw MVP Black playing a lot of Raynor.
That's true.
And MVP Black busted out Raynor in a way that we've never seen before, popularized the hero in that instance with just crazy strong micro. I mean, it looks like he's stutter-stepping 16 Marines at once just with the one Raynor. But the power of Battlecruiser when it comes to fighting over these temples, it can do a lot of damage and force you into weird positions. I mean, it's almost guaranteed damage with the amount of damage potential it has.
Yeah. Aerial control, that's another very good point too. Arthas does bring quite a bit of that to the table. Vala, there is a good amount of AoE damage in that sense. So something to think about as we move forward with DK's draft. So who do you guys think won it though? Really, based on what we've seen so far from the two teams.
So I think Team DK has a more stable composition. Like if everything goes normally, Team DK will be coming out. They have more damage and they have more self-protection. But what we have is the chance of Void Prison. Zuna is going to have to be the major playmaker here. If Void Prison isolates some of the warriors away and he's able to make Muradin and Arthas take a timeout for 5 seconds, and Raynor and Vala are in the backline, maybe they get Wailing Arrowed, maybe Zuna with Zeratul jumps on them. That is the key moment where you could try and get some takedowns. But I feel like stability is on the side of DK.
Well, unless they go for March of the Black King. And I really feel if Tempo, they either use Entomb much better or they pick up March of the Black King. I like their composition. I'm feeling it here.
Yeah, all right.
Well, without any further delay, guys, we have game number 3 ready to roll. We're going to be going to Sky Temple, and the winner of this will advance to the next round of Group B, and they will await their opponents, which is either Braveheart.
Or Navi.
Oh.
That's right, putting themselves in a great position. This is the rubber match between these two teams, and this is going to really dictate the pacing of a lot of events, or a lot of, BlizzCon next week, right? So we're going to have Arthon, he's going to be on Sylvanas, Dreadnought will be playing Brightwing, KO is going to be on Jaina, Soldier will be playing Leoric, and Zuna rounding it out once more on one of his favorite heroes, the Zeratul.
And Team DK of Korea, they're here on the red team. Crazy Moving will be playing as Raynor. Jaehoon going to be on Uther Noblesse, playing Muradin. SCSC on Arthas. And rounding out the team is Sniper on Vala.
So when it comes to these early game compositions and which teams should really be the aggressors in this sense, I think Jaina has a huge impact on that. But you really can't count out Muradin and Uther as well. They have a great amount of control in their base kit. Tempo Storm, we see that they are spread out quite a bit, not quite rotating so much between the lanes. I think they're really sort of seceding that initial team fight capability.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the right thing to do right now. Just roam around, play safe, get the soak, and the passivity we saw in the last game is really just kind of, again, another sign of Tempo Storm's growth as a team. So as long as they can maintain that in this game, it could be what they need, but a lot of damage going off to both KO and Zuna, who are trying to turn this around. Zuna going for it, does have the blink to get out of there, and he does just that. A lot of low heroes, but no one goes down.
Yeah. Some fairly high cooldowns, especially on that Blizzard picked up. But yes, this distraction has been more than enough for this bottom lane to take out these towers and to really take back that experience lead and move even a bit further forward ahead.
You know, an investment spent in an attempt to get some early game kills in the top lane, not paying off. Tempo manages to blow up an early bottom tower, but they need to rotate up to these top two temples.
So for the temples, if you guys aren't familiar with this battleground, sort of in a King of the Hill fashion, if you are able to control these, you get a lot of siege damage fired away at the structures on the enemy team. So holding these objectives are very important, and having strong team fight capability in the early game is of utmost importance.
Okay, a massive rotation. Brightwing phase shifting in, and the Polymorph getting off on Jaehoon. Early kill on Uther. SCSC will fall as well. Poly was saved for that, and beautiful play here, getting 2 for nothing in favor of Tempo Storm, sitting on a 1-level lead at the 2-minute marker. Hello?
Yeah, Brightwing being able to phase shift into that, really just to keep the Jaina alive. They know that's the priority target. DK has to take that out. They know that so much damage in the early game can come out of Jaina. They have to deal with it. They were not successful in doing so. Sort of still a split on the temples. We're going to see that next phase pop up at the 430 mark, but right now Tempo Storm is very happy with their position.
Yeah, now they need to send someone down to the bottom lane to soak against Raynor. They did have more soak earlier in the game. I mean, that's just the power of Brightwing, but I like the fact that the team rotates their entire team based on where Brightwing is. Having her transition across the battleground, never optimal, so they just leave her in the top and go elsewhere.
Yes, we talked about the importance of that mobility, especially in the draft on this. And, you know, way back, maybe 3 months back, it was all about having that ability to shift across the battleground. Even Falstad seeing a lot more play on this battleground in particular. And we're going to see much of that out of the Brightwing with this mercenary camp push in the top.
Okay, Tempo Storm narrowing that gap for those level 7 talents, where they will have a small window of opportunity to try to press the issue. Zuna quite low, should be rather careful here, going back to base with his Hearthstone. And he'll just top on off.
Arthon getting out of a tricky situation as well. Great use of that Haunting Wave. Now, what I find interesting is the early taking of this mercenary camp in the top, the night camp. There are some teams that will opt to sort of time out the position in which they take it right around when the bottom temple, that's the next temple that spawns, right around that 430 mark. So we see the DK has sort of waited to take it. Tempo Storm opting to grab it early. Yes, takedown on maybe unmoving. We do see his trait pop. He is going to stay alive, but still, that's a long cooldown, 40 seconds on that, and that he's not going to have it available.
And he tapped the well. So his sustainability over this bottom lane, which is where the next temple will spawn, has just been severely reduced. Big place for Tempo, but DK just got their level 7 talents, and they actually did go for cleanse.
Ooh, a rotation, perhaps? Arthas is going to have to get out. I think he knows that there is a possibility for this. Now, have they extended a bit too far? Positionally, this is not that favorable for Tempo Storm. There's 3 members still sitting in the bottom to immediately start occupying this temple.
Yeah, but I still think it's nice for Brightwing to be up there, to be able to soak that lane for a short while. But phase shift was spent.
Right.
So it's going to be a little bit before Brightwing is capable of rotating down immediately to the bottom lane.
Yeah, I think Tempo Storm in that regard will opt to give up a lot of the Temple shots here for that reason. They know they can't have a full team here. Zuna maybe try to go in, poke, scare the enemy team off, but really getting soak I think is the best that Tempo Storm is going to be able to do for the first part of this Temple.
Yeah, phase shift should be just about ready. That's where you see Tempo starting to get a little bit more aggressive. Lyric making his way down, and Dread's just going to top off his mana before this battle. Got a soak from a couple lanes there. They are maintaining close to a level advantage, and there is the phase shift going in. Noblesse is the target. Polymorph not going to be in range, and Dwarf Tusk go off. We do see the Wraith Walk there from Soldier, getting Lyric out of that situation. They need to be careful here. If they get collapsed upon, this could be devastating.
Yes, the rotation of Brightwing maybe not going to be available for this. Dread, the positioning is just so bad for Tempo Storm.
A KO does get blown up early in this battle, and it looks like we're going to have another takedown. Very soon, Wraithwalk gets Leoric out, but Zeratul not so lucky.
2 heroes down, taking the majority of the shots from this Temple and evening up the experience. That's probably the best that DK could have hoped for in that scenario.
It was just really sloppy to all commit into the center of that bottom Temple when Murden was able to flank so freely.
Yes.
The Stormbolt connecting on 2 targets just put them in such a good start for that fight, and then KO was all the way at the bottom by himself.
That's exactly what happened. They pulled the team apart by really putting that Murden forward, like you were mentioning with the Dwarf Toss. They just said, I bet we can get Tempo Storm to overextend to try to get this takedown, and then the team is split where a strong flank is capable. Murden's going to get that health back quite quickly, and then we cut off the remaining members of Tempo Storm, and we find ourselves with a 2 takedown advantage.
Okay, well, that bought them enough time to actually get their heroic abilities first by a few seconds, and we are seeing Entomb once again. So Entomb, Blink Heal, Water Elemental, Void Prison, and Wailing Arrow. They do have some great wombo potential, and this time around, there is no Maw to stop their approach.
Good point. Over on DK's side, we do have Strafe, Divine Shield. We're actually going to have Rainer's Raiders. That's a bit of a change, and especially since we were talking about the Hyperion. We're going to have Avatar and Army of the Dead as well for Arthas.
So Army of the Dead makes Arthas quite darn hard to kill, as well as Murden. So this is a very tanky front line that they have. Big damage in the back from Raynor and Vala. A cool way to approach Sky Temple when you know there's a lot of head-on engagements.
Yeah. Now, we've seen Rainer's Raiders picked up a little bit more as of late, and it's going to get you that great single target damage. Perhaps even like a flank style is what we might expect to see out of Rainer's positioning in the future. And if you have a lot of peel in the form of Murden and Arthas who can go super far forward because of the sustainability that you were mentioning.
This is so interesting that they're throwing 5 men into the bottom lane when they know the enemy team has Sylvanas. Even if you manage to pick up this fort, you're sacrificing Soak in 2 other lanes where Tempo Storm is currently getting that. And Tempo Storm, again, Brightwing Sylvanas will trade out effectively in terms of structural count. Soldier just trying to buy some time, realizing the rotation is happening. Beautifully done here by Tempo Storm.
Yeah, they do pick up a bit of experience out of that. They do get the fort in the top lane, so they trade that out. Now the Temples have spawned mid and bottom. It looks as though DK are setting their sights on having the control over mid.
Yes, Leoric will be able to control that bottom temple himself, so it will be an even trade for the time being.
I'm not really seeing a plan so much out of what DK has going forward. You know, Tempo Storm has really sort of put, you know, the levels are even. The takedowns are fairly even so far, but you can kind of just feel that Tempo Storm really does have the control. All right, I like this. They've immediately shifted over to taking the offensive camp. This is something I would imagine comes as a surprise to Tempo Storm.
Tempo's going for the boss, though. They must have caught wind somewhere in the streamline, and they're picking up a very early boss in this game, and they will successfully do so. Leoric actually leaving the point, which is going to signal to DK that this might be happening. VP in the perfect location, and the boss is picked up.
That's absolutely worth it. Yes, it's a high cooldown on the ability, but making sure you didn't know how many heroes were going to be following down. They are looking to punish. DK is upset with this, the fact that they have to be up against the boss.
Okay, the Entomb is in a perfect place, locking out the rotation into the bottom lane. The Tempo is just in full-on retreat, but they will end up losing Soldier. That's probably the best hero they could have lost, so all things considered, that's quite nice considering the boss is marching down that bottom lane.
They did trade a few heroics out for the time being, but yeah, I gotta remember, keep in mind that boss is still pushing in the bottom lane.
Zuna could try to take out Raynor by himself. He's actually going in, a nice knockback. Dreadnought blinking on in there. They will grab the final few shots here of this bottom temple.
Okay, Soldier looking to put a bit of pressure onto SC on the Arthas, and they move forward. Are they going to try to get a flank?
This boss is getting so much value done. The beautiful Wailing Arrow goes down. The Polymorph follow-up, and the Blizzard gets the takedown. Beautifully done here by Tempo Storm, but no, Sylvanas will end up falling herself. 2 for 1 in this fight so far. And Zuna, does he have Blink? Yes, he will be able to slip away.
Right. A situation you need to back out immediately. If Uther is that first target to sustain, considering those 2 warriors that are still up, going to be very difficult. But the fact that they're able to get that wall down does set themselves up very well. Structure damage is the name of the game on this battleground. All you have to do is occupy those temples, and you can actually win. You can take the core out just from occupying the objective on this battleground. So any type of small advantage you can get, taking out forts, keeps, walls, any kind of structure is always going to be to your benefit.
Yeah, but it is still a slight experience lead for Team DK. They've actually done a great job just getting back into this game after that strong early start for Tempo. So when you look at it, it is dead even right now.
Yeah, and they're sort of stacking up this mercenary push in the bottom lane. There's not a whole lot to be done for either side. You can continue to soak to get to level 16, which both teams they're getting quite close to, but really taking the mercenary camps is what's going to set themselves up to punish play from the other team.
Okay, Sylvanas using her power to push out these lanes to the best of her ability will clean up that final giant camp. We even see bruisers now being picked up for Team DK, just roaming around, picking up these mercenaries before the next spawn of the temples.
This is a cool pick, the extra charge on the penetrating round for Raynor. Now, we've seen that Zuna has attempted to go in and take Raynor out, just to make use of that wormhole ability, put some damage and try to burst him down. At level 16, when that Bullseye Talent is picked up with the 1.5 second stuns and 2 charges, that could really put Zuna into a precarious spot where he is not able to blink out and is going to have to think twice about which heroes he's looking to try to snipe off.
We have to highlight the passivity of Zuna there, just waiting, knowing they could be looking for him. They are all making their way down, and Zuna will manage to escape this situation. Just, SCSC knows he's there. He has to blink over the wall. Just very well done by Zuna.
The human ward, if you will, was really able to just sort of keep tabs on the rotations for DK, and that's quite important, especially considering these temples. They probably had a good idea that they're rotating down there, but always having that vision is so important.
Okay, level 16 talents for both teams have been picked up. We see that stun going off, but a beautiful Entomb just connecting on Arthas. Not really the target you want, actually just shielding through all the damage, and now KO in a bad spot trades out Uther, the best you could ever ask for.
Okay, I like this. They really should just back out, considering the VP. They have a great chance to just trade this.
Okay, but Rainer's Raiders did a fair amount of damage in this fight. Zuna gets dwarf tossed upon, does not have the sustain to get through this. No, the shields come out. Brightwing phase shifting on over. Soldier has to Wraith walk away. Arthlon coming from the backside, so all 4 members of Tempo are getting into position, and they don't have a support here, so if Sniper's not careful, the damage could be critical. Trading out 1 for 1 in this fight. 2 down on each side right now. Arthlon is quite low, just trying to get away with the quickening, but the Stormbolt connects and does go down. 4 members of Tempo have fallen, and DK takes a decisive team fight.
Yes, absolutely. And they're going to be able to back up. They're going to take more structures, and in the case where they're already in the lead structure-wise, this is going to catapult them quite further forward. Already starting to siege up on that bottom keep.
Man, this is a tense moment for Tempo. I mean, they're far from out of it. They're only about half a level, a little bit more behind at this point, but the temples, I mean, if 2 had been spawned at this point in time, it could be a lot worse for them.
Right, and there is that variability. That's good that you mentioned that. And as the game moves forward, the chance that does happen increases, which can put the the team that is behind, especially in the map control sense, in a very bad spot.
Noblesse thinking about Hearthing, actually going to challenge as he has some help coming down. Brightwing phase shifting in, a lot of damage applied to Noblesse, and Entomb does connect. Dwarf Toss has just been used, so that will be a kill for Tempo Storm.
That was very well played. Soldier knows that as soon as he throws that Drain Hope, hold on a second, Zuna going in, putting a lot of damage.
VP is down for 5 more seconds. Couldn't use it in that situation. He wishes he could have done that. Howling Blast cast by Arthas, but a lot of damage. The silence on 3 targets, and Zeratul blinks, and Zuna gets 2 kills. The Wraith walk forward, looking for SC moving. Where's the Skeletal Swing? No, not going to be ready in time.
Did Soldier overextend, though? That is the big question. Crazy moving on that Raynor can put out quite a bit of damage. Really well played. I have to highlight the play against the Muradin Soldier. Very well done. He knows that when he throws down that Drain Hope onto Muradin, the best way to escape is to make use by using that Dwarf Toss. That also happens to be the only way that he's going to get out of the Entomb. And he has a little bit of follow-up. We saw that from Dread. very nicely done. It's a great way to outplay that Muradin. They can back up now with this hero advantage, take the boss, and try to even things up.
8-8 in terms of kills. 3 forts, 3 keeps remain for each team. It is quite even, and they're even stalling out the boss to just get an additional advantage. Working on these 2 giant camps, they're going to look for a massive death push in the bottom lane paired with Sylvanas. This could be devastating.
Yes, one slip up, I think, from DK at this point. They're going to have to show their best defensive play.
Okay, these 2 giants in the front, they're just cannon fodder. They'll get picked apart pretty quickly. The boss marching behind. Tempo actually opting to just leave. They realize they have the pressure they need. The Tempo will spawn in 20 seconds. If they can control 2 of them for a short while, that 3 keep, tie we have right now, that could very much change.
I wonder if they will try to get even more. They're looking to get the structure damage, but they could even take the offensive Night Camp up in this upper side. I think there's a lot of options available to Tempo Storm. They have this half-level lead. Keep in mind the Storm talent tier is at level 20, quickly looming for Tempo Storm.
Quickly looming. All the mercenaries have been eliminated. They're currently controlling both of the temples. Even doing that light structural damage they did to the mid lane is so good for them right now. And then beautiful Entomb cast once again. Noblesse will be able to stay alive, but he had to pop some of his cooldowns for those heals.
Raiders use, though, and that is something that they're really looking to, soak up a lot of the damage output in the fight. Even if they're looking to just trade out these temples, that is not in favor of DK.
And Tempo, they're so close to level 20. Even just eliminating 1 tower, which we just saw happen, puts them so very close. As I said on that point, there is level 20.
I think the next fight could really go a long way. We have the Spectral Leech, and when we have 2 warriors, it's a smart play. Soldier going in.
He's looking for the kill. Noblesse, not the target they really want, but they're forcing them to really separate. We see Avatar used early in the battle. Noblesse getting blown up. Void Prison stalling out Uther's heals, and Noblesse Dwarf Toss out at the last possible moment. A Wraith Walk going forward. Zuna blinks in super low himself. The heal come through, but not quite enough. 1 for 1. Huge Entomb locking out. Ice Block used for Jaina. They're splitting up. Beautiful shields there from SESC. We see the army of them really keeping him alive, and the Death Coil takes out Jaina. This is so back and forth. 2 for 1 in favor of Team DK, but SESC will fall 2 for 2, 3 for 2. DK is managing to get the lane. Arthlon trying to juke into this top lane.
Okay, Arthlon is over that wall.
Oh my gosh.
Trade. Wow, look at this. Soldier looking to try to get that damage on. A great heal at the last moment. Yes, and it's able to stun him on. Great bolt of the Storm over the wall. Arthlon will be able to escape to safety, but we still have this tempo up. DK looking to get the chase.
All right, they're chasing Arthlon, which is the best thing they could ask for. That top temple has not been touched in quite some time. Temples from Death Timers, about 30 seconds on each of their members. So this is really a situation where they just want to soak. DK, they do have level 20, but none of the keeps have fallen yet.
The adrenaline is high for both of these teams. This is an incredibly critical moment. Taking a series here puts you in an amazing spot to get to that top 4 at BlizzCon, and simple mistakes from single players on either team could be devastating.
If you lose here, you're done to BlizzCon. You have to wait thinking on a defeated mentality until your next matchup, and that is not the way you want to have it happen. Tempo DK, the tension is high. Brightwing gonna be up in 1 second. All 5 members are up for each team.
So what is going to be the next play? The boss actually is probably up within the next minute and a half or so, which could really be the next point of contention between these teams, as we have a couple minutes as well for the next set of temples. Still 3 keeps up on either side. I could not have asked for a better matchup between 2 teams.
Kubi, I'm shaking. I'm actually just on next level hype right now because this game has been so tense. So many close moments for both sides. And I mean, it's 10 to 11 in terms of takedowns. I mean, it couldn't be a closer game.
The thing that's really been exciting me too is the use of Entomb. We did not see play like this at all in game number 1, but has been working out so well every time to force escape options from Team DK.
Okay, well, Bruisers picked up. There's Mercenaries in the bottom lane for DK. I mean, a nice spread of presence, but this is a bit of a sloppy situation. Nice escape there using both the Wraith Walk and the March going out of there, but Noblesse taking a lot of damage, throwing out the stun onto Zuna. Zuna blinks on out of there, but that's a hugely blown up right wing. Oh no, that is devastating.
Yes, okay, so that means Dreadnought sacrificing himself to really make sure that he can keep Zuna alive. That's only 4 members now. DK knows they have this big advantage. Soldier really just trying to tank for that front line. Are they going to be able to keep this keep alive? I don't think so. And with both of these temples up, this is suddenly looking very bad for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, 44 seconds without a support. We do see the Howling Blast connecting on Soldier, but there's enough of a threat to dissuade their push in. Between Void Prison, Wailing Arrow, and Entomb, it gets quite risky marching into those situations.
Noblesse, he's crazy, man. I just see him dive into these fights, and I just think immediately, especially with that polymorph, how is he ever going to be able to get out? But the follow-up from the rest of his team has always been very, very good.
Oh, all right, Mercenaries in the top lane, forcing Arthas and Vala to respond. Tempo Storm realizes this is happening, and they move on into the middle temple, forcing them back. This is a nice win. Brightwing will be available for this fight, phase shifting in just about 5 seconds. Will immediately come up here, probably straight to our Leoric player right now.
The Spectral Leech has done so much to keep him alive as well. It always seems to be that fight between Noblesse and Soldier, and he just seems to get no headway.
Zuna needs a heal. He needs a heal. He's blown up way too quickly in this fight. Dwarf tossing in, Wailing Arrow goes out, not even connecting on Muradin. A bit of a weird spot there, and that is just such a nice decisive blow up from DK.
Just as soon as they get their support back online, that means that Zuna also gets taken out. So they find themselves with these staggered deaths, and it's so hard to get map control back when you have these situations where one hero is always down.
Starting the boss, and DK already suspects this might be the case. Tempo Storm is now in such a bad spot. Brightwing getting blown up. Dreadnought does manage to blink heal away. Needs to use the next cooldown. Goes off in, but the polymorph isn't enough. Dread is so very low. I don't even know if phase shift is available. Trying to use it. No, Brightwing does end up falling. This could be lights out for Tempo Storm because DK are sitting up 5-3 with 2 keeps down already.
DK has a lot of options. They can move forward. They can take the boss. They could rotate up to the top lane, take the keep, and then just sit on the final temple, which, when you occupy it from its complete duration, takes out the core itself. They're opting to take this boss. They'll have pressure in the bottom lane. This means something that Tempo Storm has to respond to. They can rotate then back up to the top.
Zeratul will not be here in the heartbeat that Brightwing could have. Void Prism would be great, but they're getting cheeky. They're getting on the point. Blizzard crashing down on 3 targets. Is this too risky? Soldier ends up going down. Dwarf toss forward. Sylvanas has to blink. Jaina getting incredibly low. KO gets blown up as well. Zunic doesn't have enough damage. Damage going out. Void Prison not quite enough. Dodges the Howling Blast, but he is one of 2 members remaining on Tempest from Sylvanas actually in the enemy's team's base. I think that is it, Kubi.
I think it was a last-ditch effort from Tempo Storm. Excellently defended from DK. They're able to take the boss and really show why you guys should be believing in them as the strongest team representing here at BlizzCon, taking a very close and strong series over Tempo Storm.
I mean, yeah, Tempo Storm, they put up an excellent fight ahead for a good portion of that game, but just a few decisive blow-ups in those last few engagements on Zuna and Dreadnought really netted them that hero advantage that you need in the extreme late game.
Yeah, it was just those staggered deaths that were constantly happening towards that late game, making it almost impossible for them to grab those very critical objectives in the form of the boss and those late game temples, which really can just translate into a quick victory.
Yeah, that was a really, really good game. And even though Tempo Storm lost, I feel like this really bodes well for them, potentially clinching the 2nd spot in the group. Like, they played really well. They went toe-and-toe with perhaps the #1 favorite, not just for this opening week, but for the entire BlizzCon, like next week.
I mean, that was definitely the play of a top 4 team. I mean, in every way. Tempo Storm, they showed up to this event. There was a lot of chatter, a lot of doubts in the team. I mean, the discussions have been going on, but the play that they showed here, going toe-to-toe with the top team from Korea, absolutely impressive. I mean, I am beyond impressed by their play today.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what Korea has to say now, because they seemed very confident and weren't even worried about the NA teams when we talked to them. And I think perhaps that series could have changed their mind.
Yeah, well, I've got a few moments highlighted here which really showed the flow of the game. I'd like to take a look at that in a Windows 10 game DVR replay. Here we've got one moment, gonna pause it there, going with the Entombed there, gonna play it again. And one thing is here, while they're going in on Arthas with an Entomb, they've been doing this a lot effectively in most of the game, forcing the enemy to use cooldowns to try and save whoever was caught. In this particular case, Jaina was a little bit out of position. She exposed herself to Muradin, Raynor, and Vala very deadly. And even though she did an ice block, she was in a very vulnerable position. The cool thing, though, is that when he came out, he immediately blew up Uther. And look at that KO. I think he did very well there. That's a 1-for-1, but in the follow-up, in the aftermath, we see a fledgling Tempo Storm here trying to disengage from these very powerful frontliners with Vala and Raynor giving chase, and there were a number of kills here for Team DK. They're gonna go chase down all the way back there. Stormbolt misses. Zuna tries to disengage her, but did you see that Howling Blast? Gonna pause it. He knows, you know, the worm always saw where he came from, so he aimed that out before Zeratul was even back. You've only got 2 seconds to port back there and gonna play that again. Zuna was taken out there, but again, they did a trade. And this is what I was so impressed about with Tempo Storm. All your heroes are almost dead, but you're still focusing down one of the enemy's vulnerable heroes.
Yeah, that was a good point that you brought up with the Jaina. Already knew that he was in a situation where he was going to get taken out. There was no way he was going to escape, but may as well take out the support in the process.
Right. Now here's a very interesting moment again. We see a very congested Tempo Storm giving chase to Murden. Already used his Dwarf launch to try and get away. So there we go with the Polymorph. And then they're going to focus him. We've got the Wailing Arrow taking down Uther, which meant no Divine Shield for a while. And then Void Prison as well. So they're powering through even on the Hardened Shield Murden, because they know if you can get a 5 versus 4 fight, you may be able to win. But the price was high, wasn't it?
Yes. Absolutely, but they were able to get that takedown. The Void Prison positioning that you've really highlighted, I think, is so critical for that, and part of the big reason that Zeratul had such a huge impact in this game.
Yeah, I think Zuna played very well this game, and also a very nice play by Arthelon, always getting away with the Banshees. Problem here is, even though they do get a kill, we've got a very healthy enemy team who didn't burn any of their heroics yet. And as we play it again, we see, yes, Murden will get taken out eventually, but it took Zeratul and Jaina both of the storming forwards to get that down. I thought Zuna would be able to escape for a while, but he will get taken out. And here we see, let's look at Jaina's positioning. KO, he's moving into Arthas. While it does mean that he can rejoin his allies, it was a bit risky going back in there. And in this big melee, this big chaos, it was DK who controlled the chaos slightly better, getting a 3-4-2. But what was really cool, Arthelon here, first of all, he cannot mount up because the wizard does 3 long-range shots. Then he used his Q ability, the Withering Fire, to be able to run away quicker, getting bonus movement speed from it, and putting the Bruiser's gonna pause it here on his pursuant, and was able to get out there. It was a 3-4-2 for DK in their favor. This was a very, I mean, this moment at the end was like, Tempo Storm needs to try and do something about this one, right? Like,
Yes.
it looked like their house of cards was crumbling already.
They had to make some kind of big play, even though they were at a disadvantage, right?
Right. It looks foolish, but it's like it's a do or die, right? Like it's a catch-22, and they decided we prefer to take an active part in this rather than just having the boss push all the way to the core. So we play that again. And I mean, I think Soldier really played so much better than in the first game.
Yep.
Great Entomb usage, but yeah, they were unable to get this boss. And with that, gonna pause that pretty much secured the victory there for Team DK.
Yeah, very solid late game play. I think some of the decision making is quite difficult. Those aren't situations that you can practice very easily as a team. They continue to make the right decisions against Tempo Storm, who I think we can all agree is a very strong late game team.
Yeah, they certainly are, but you know what? That really sets the stage for our bracket. We can actually get the update here as to what has happened throughout the day today, and you can see that Team DK will be victorious over Tempo Storm and advance to the second round. The final first round matchup today will be Braveheart versus Na'Vi, and the team that advances there will be facing Team DK later today. On that note, let's actually take a look at the schedule so we can see our next 3 matchups that we have happening shortly from now. So up next, like we said, Braveheart Na'Vi. Followed by that will be the winner's match from Group A, which is going to be Cloud9 versus Team Dignitas. And then the final matchup of the day will be DK versus either Na'Vi or Braveheart.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. You know, it's a very new team. Braveheart is sort of an agglomeration of a couple teams, strong teams from China, but then we have Na'Vi who took the, decisive victory in the European scene. So I'm very curious to see which of those teams. We know that Braveheart is actually feeling quite confident moving forward. Yeah.
Wow.
They are. Considering how new of a team they are, they do feel quite confident.
That's lovely to hear. I love seeing confident teams, and it makes sense. Like, even, I'm not saying it's misguided, but even like as a competitor, you would want to have confidence no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to hear that.
Well, you know what? We've got a very special interview set up with the guys over at Team DK. Anna, take it away.
Thank you very much. I am here indeed with Jaehoon and our translator, Amy. And I want to ask about some of these heroes that we saw for the first time. In Game 2, we had Chen and Illidan for the first time. In Game 3, we had Reyna for the first time. And even Abathur being played for the first time, getting through the ban phase. Tell us a little bit about those heroes. Were they ones that you felt were pretty obvious, or were they things that were meant to surprise us?
좀 이번 게임들에서 색다른 영웅들을 많이 보여줬었는데 이거를 미리 준비해 온 건가요? 아니면 원래 자주 쓰는 건지 아니면 좀 놀래켜 주려고 준비해 온 건지? 두 번째도 그렇고 세 번째도 그렇고 네.
첫 번째, 세 번째는 저희가 평소에 많이 쓰던 조합으로 했고요. 두 번째는 마지막에 첸 있잖아요. 첸에서 좀 고민해가지고 첸은 원래 안 쓰는데 그냥 친구들이 하자 그래가지고 했어요.
With the first and the third matches, they picked the ones they normally pick, so they're quite popular. And with the game 2, they chose Chen, which is quite an unusual one. They don't usually pick it, but the team agreed to use Chen, so that's why they picked it.
Well, in that game too, that was the one that Tempo Storm was able to come back and take from the team, from you guys. So, do you think that was because of that strange pick, or was it an overconfidence thing, or why do you think Tempo Storm was able to take that game too from you?
방금 말씀하신 첸에 대해서 조금 더 물어보려고 하는데요. 첸을 선택했던 이유가 조금 자신감이 있어서 픽을 하게 된 건지, 아니면 템포 스톰에 어떻게 대항하기 위해서 픽을 한 건지 말씀해 주세요.
1, 2단이랑 맞는 탱커를 찾고 있었는데요. 거기 중에 첸이랑 아누바락, 요한나 이렇게 세 개가 나왔는데 그 중에 첸을 쓰자 해서 첸을 했어요.
So they were looking for a tank to go with Illidan, and they were choosing between Chen or Johanna or Anubarak, and they decided to use Chen. So it was their choice.
All right, gotcha. Well, ultimately, you were able to emerge on top over Tempo Storm. Is that because Tempo Storm just didn't have what it took to beat you, or is it because, as you mentioned in your video before, you feel like the other regions don't have the meta to compete with the Korean meta?
지금 결과적으로 템포 스톰을 이기신 거잖아요. 그게 템포 스톰이 준비가 덜 돼 있었기 때문인가, 아니면 그 인터뷰에서 말씀하신 것처럼 한국 팀들이 조금 더 메타 면에서 좀 좋다라고 생각하시는 건지 말씀을 해주세요.
일단 이긴 경기가 저희가 한국에서 자주 쓰는 픽들로 이겨서 저희 메타가 더 좋은 것 같고, 그리고 좀 약하게 봤는데 잘하셔가지고 좀 놀랐어요.
So the first match of the first game and the third game, they used the picks that they normally do. So it's like the popular pick in Korea. So that's one of the reasons that they won. That's the reason why they won. And they thought Tempo Storm would be weaker, and they were better than expectation. So.
Well, these were great games indeed. Thank you so much for showing them to us, and we'll be watching with great interest as you move forward into BlizzCon. Thank you so much for your time. And guys, we will be right back with more Heroes very soon, but I want to remind you, go check out BlizzCon.com if you want to find out more about the festivities coming up and what we have in store for you. In just a moment, we'll be back with more Heroes right after this.